The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, employer, or company. The content provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal, financial, medical, or professional advice. All discussions of crimes, accusations, or legal matters should be considered alleged unless proven in a court of law. Always seek the advice of a qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding a particular matter. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show. So welcome everybody to another episode of Out of Control with Mel. I'm Mel, and today I have a guest, Elci McGuire.
Hello.
Yay. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this today, Elci. I will not fan myself the entire time. I'm going to stop now. It is 85 degrees this morning here in LA, and there's no AC in this room, and I'm going to sweat like a little piggy. And what can I say? Subscribe, please. Support the show. I'll put all of Elci's contact info so you can follow her and all that. We're going to dive into her story today. I believe, Elci, that you... So I met Elci through Basil. So those of you that know me through Twitter and you know Basil through True Crime Storytime and all of his millions of spaces, he's a friend of Elci's, and that's how I met her. And he talked to her about her story and told me that I would definitely want to hear it, which I believe. And that's how we ended up here. So, Elci, you can go ahead and tell us anything about yourself that you want to introduce yourself, and then go ahead and dive into your story.
Well, I'm just here in Texas. I just moved here. I love it. I'm originally from Florida, but yeah, I've been in the East Coast half of my life, and I landed back here. Well, in the South, kinda. People don't really call Florida the South, but we considered it the South or whatever. But yeah, so I'm just here in Texas, and yeah.
Well, everyone's moving to Texas, and honestly, I feel a little left out. I feel like, come on, why?
I know you gotta get out. Come.
I definitely have to come for a visit. You don't live anywhere? Do you live near Austin?
No, I'm like 80 miles out. Yeah, I'm between Waco and Austin. I refuse to live in a city ever again. Like I tell people, like if you want to live near a city, like you want to live in a city, live near it, you'll get a cheaper house, everything will be better. And it's just so
I really, really, really want to get out of here. I
Do
really
it.
do. So congratulations. As you can see, Elci's doing some work there with her house, which is so exciting.
Yeah. I do a lot of
Congratulations.
DIY, and I love work with my hands. I'm like what do they call those? Like people that can't work a 9 to 5, basically. It
Hey.
just rips my soul out to do that. So I've always had like odd jobs, kind of, and I've worked in the film sort of industry to like want to be an aspiring actor or whatever, actress. But yeah, I love working with my hands and just all of the non-traditional work that one could find.
Yeah, I hear that. We talked a little bit before we hit record, and we talked about, Elci knows that I was also trying to be an actor, and so yeah, I understand. And I'm not great at the 9 to 5 myself. And here we are. Yeah, some of us just aren't built for that, right?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
not.
I can't.
It's
But
rather
yeah.
inhumane, I find.
Yeah.
Goes against all of my, it's like my on a cellular level, my being is like rejection. I reject this.
It's like I call it like soul, like it just stills my soul to like do any of that. Like I'm like I can't. I would work on set for like 16 hours and be fine. Like sure, there was some annoyance with all of it, but like give me a 9 to 5, no. Put me in on a set or a production or anything like handy, and 16 hours, I'm like, whatever. Even though in
Yeah.
film they do say, what is the saying? Get ready to sit around and wait.
Mm-hmm.
but you know.
One of the last things I did some extra work last summer because I went back to school. I graduated in May and I was like, I'm going to take the summer off. Turns out I'm just going to take the rest of my life off. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I'm doing the podcast. But now I've lost my train of thought because I have menopause brain. School, what was I doing after school? Oh, extra work. I did a game show. Jay Leno, I don't even know if it's still, I don't know if it kicked off or whatever, but Jay Leno had a new game show. So I sat in the audience for that. That was fun. But you know what stinks about that? It's like the easiest money in the world, doesn't pay that well. But clapping all day, no, that hurts. So I'm like pretending.
Yeah. I was surprised because they usually have you do the fake clap anyways. Like they put the clap in after and
No, they were making us. I sat in the audience of The Masked Singer, and that was also a lot of clapping. And I'm like, bro, can I just sit here? You're not really paying enough for the clapping. I don't know.
Mhm.
So, but we're not here to talk about our Hollywood ambitions, although we both made narrow escapes with our lives. We've
Yeah,
decided.
I know. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, my life. I'm like one of those people I I guess it's hard to like get started. Like, where do I start? What
You have
my
a story to tell about coercive control. You know a little something about it from the inside. You were a
yeah,
cult leader. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. Well, my dad tried hard, but like so I guess to begin with, let's just begin with the beginning, right?
Yeah.
My family is from New York and Texas and Florida. I was born in Florida in Lakeland, a small town. It's I guess I don't know what is it, Central Florida, Tampa. But so before I was born, my dad was basically running from the state because he had kidnapped his own, kidnapped is so weird when it's your own kids, but yeah, kidnapped my older siblings from the state. And the reason they were taken by the Child Protective Service, I think the story is someone had called because granted, he was not in any like capacity to have kids or take care of them. They were in a condition, they were like, I guess what I heard was they looked like kids from Africa. So like the big bellies, very skinny. And this was in the 80s. So someone said, they called them and the Child Protective Service took my older siblings away. My dad, being the anti-authority, person he is, he's like, fuck that shit. I'm not, he just went back and just took them out of Child Protective
Can I
Services.
ask how old your dad was at this time?
I know he's like in his 70s now, and this was the 80s. I think he was in probably 40s. Because I know my mom was like early 20s. His birthday, I forget all of everyone's
But he
birthday.
was like a grown man. He wasn't like a young man
No,
when this was
he was
happening.
past 20s. I believe late 30s, maybe mid 30s. So this was 87 or 88. Yeah. And he's like
Okay.
70 something now. So just whatever, if anyone listening, they can do the math. But yeah, so they, took my older siblings away and he just, was like, no, I'm going to take them back. And that's illegal. You can't, basically you're kidnapping once you do that because once the state has your kids rightfully, like, I mean, not all cases, but rightfully, they did take my siblings away because of the stuff like they saw. And then after that, so he took them back or kidnapped them, the state then put, he was on the run. And so when I was born in the 90s, I was born into us being on the run. Like a little backstory of my dad, he was religion-wise, like Muslim, I suppose, and a mix of like, it's hard to tell because growing up, he did a lot of stuff. He was heavily into Native American culture or African culture, and us being Muslim.
Was he born here?
He was born in Texas.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so he was born in Texas. And so when I was born in 92, we were already in hiding. So I was in a state of like, I guess, things are normal because when you're born, like for me, it was like a box, like that's all you know. And so 92, like we were in a house that's basically, it was not necessarily a house. It was kind of like a shack, I suppose. There was no real plumbing, no real like rooms. There was like we basically lived like we were on the run because technically, I mean, we were. So our beds were blankets, like a sleeping bag on the floor, and duffel bags on the wall for your drawers and dressers or whatever. So at any minute, we could just, skip town or whatever we needed to do. And that was the state like of mindset that we grew up in at all times. Like this
This
sort of state of like,
shack,
mhm.
was this shack like in the mountains behind someone's property? Like where, like what kind
Yeah,
of,
it was like it was behind a church, but it was in this small, like bushy area. And
like in a
train
town?
track, yeah, in a town, but it was like kind of like secluded. I
Okay.
know there was a train track near, and then there was this metal yard and also this whatever yard, because I remember we used to have a well. We didn't have plumbing, so we had like a well outside. And that got polluted with the metal yard next to us. So we lived in, I guess, what do you call that kind of area where it's just construction, like
Industrial. Mhm.
industrial area, yeah. So I remember growing up, we weren't allowed to drink the well water, but we had no other water, so we just did it anyways because it was contaminated, supposedly like with rust and metal from the metal yard. Yeah, so we were
How
secluded.
old were your
Like,
siblings when you were born?
oh man, because I'm the middle. I have like in total, I think I know of 18 of us, but the ones I grew up with, there was 12 of us. Yeah. Yep. And yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I'm the
Okay.
middle. They were
So there are
from
two before you
um
or more than that?
more. So I'm the middle. There's 12 of us. My older siblings, one, two, three, four. There were like five before me. And the thing is, because another, I guess, thing about being grown up Muslim, my dad practiced polygamy.
Okay.
So that's multiple wives and whatever.
Mhm.
Not legally, because you're not allowed to do that in America, but that's how I grew up with multiple stepmoms. Two of them left before I was born. So I never met them. So I have siblings that I never met that were from wives before whatever. And then I only actually have my dad met my mom. Um, I had a brother from a different dad. He was about 8. And then, so I only have one full sister from my mom's side and my dad. Everyone else, the other 9 kids, are my step siblings, and they are from my stepmom's side. So she had about 8 kids with my dad that we share. One of them we don't share at all. So there's like, I think so at that time in the 80s, they were like, when this was all going down, preteens, single
Okay.
digits, like 8, 9. Because I know my brother was 8 years old when he met my father. And that was maybe 85, 86.
And how many people were living in this shack then?
There was my 2 stepmoms and the 12 of us children. And my dad and our fake uncle, which was like one of his followers. My dad's like first follower.
How
Um,
big was this place?
it was, oh man, I looked at it again. It was crazy how small it was. You think like when you're a child, everything looks so much bigger.
Right.
Place it had one room, all the girls and the stepmothers and whatever lived in the room, what the girls and then the guys lived, my brothers lived in the room. And so we just laid on the floor. But it was 1, 2, 3. My dad had his own room. And then my fake uncle, he had his small room. It was like a corner, whatever. And then there was like the living. Yeah, so there was just like 3 rooms and a half with like 15 of us, like, yeah, 14, 15 of us. And that's the children, the adults. So I grew up, just like sardining next to like my siblings. Like that's how we went to bed. Like just you pulled out a blanket on the floor and you just stacked them up and you just kind of, lay there.
I'm guessing like you didn't just chill and hang out in the house a lot with that many people? It's like, did you
Yeah,
just
actually did.
did?
Yeah, because the thing about being in on the run and hiding, my dad,
Gotta hide.
yeah, we got to hide and we weren't allowed to. I remember not allowed to go outside unless we were permission to go outside. Like even our backyard, like we weren't allowed to like see people. Like there was like times when we would go outside with permission to like hang the clothes or whatever and do whatever we need to do, or like sand wood or whatever we had to do. And there would be helicopters that like would fly over, and my dad, we would always have to like, he told us like if there's a helicopter, you duck under the trees or you go inside, and then when the mailman or the meter reader came, we had to duck under the windows because the guy would go across the window and we weren't allowed to be seen or heard like at all. We weren't supposed to exist basically. So we were very much just like in the house 24/7. So going outside was like a treat. Like that was our play fun because we weren't, my dad secluded like all of us from relatives, family, the outside world. So it was just us. Like my siblings were my friends. And they were like,
That's it.
only people I knew in society, basically. And that was like how I knew things, just like me and my
Wow.
siblings and my
So how
stepmom.
long did you live there for?
So up until I was actually born at home, so I actually was born at the house because we weren't allowed to go to the hospital to like have kids when you're on the run. And my dad was very something happened with his father in the hospital, so it spiraled him into like not trusting the government, being anti, everything. And so I was born at home because he didn't want any doctor stuff giving me any,
It wasn't the
vaccines.
Tuskegee thing, was it?
Oh no, I don't know. No, 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 no. I heard this recently that it was like a medication era. They gave him
Okay.
something too much, and I think
Okay.
heart attack. But after that, they said he like flipped. I was there from 92. I was born at home, stayed there up until officially because there was a break in between the shack that we grew up in, and then my stepmom brought a house, and that was before the Twin Towers went down. So I was like 11. So from day one birth to like 10, 11. And then officially left my dad's like reign, like when I was like 12. So yeah, so almost like now I'm always like half my life now is a little further because I'm like 32 now, but half my life used to be just that. And then it was like, I guess the way to describe it, like an amphibian from land to water or whichever way you want to flip it, but it's like, trying to breathe. It's like, yeah, it's weird because you don't forget uh being born outside of the standard living in America for one, because I know if you're in a third world country, it's these things are like not as my story isn't as like, oh my God, you know. But like when you're in, America now, we always say like I felt like a foreigner because I wasn't raised like the majority of my friends and my peers that I interact with. It's just I'm like, yeah, I guess I wasn't born into the system that we make society, because we make all this
Yeah.
shit. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna work, right? We're gonna do this, but objectively, society is just a big earth outside and animals. So like I was born outside of that standard, like I guess Barbie box, I call it. And then I got put into it, and it's just like that was, I think, more of a like the shock. I don't know. That kind of was the juxtaposition is when it got really rocky later in life,
I'm
like for me.
guessing you didn't go to school.
No.
So when did you first socialize with other people?
Ooh. So a little bit at the house. So like
Yeah.
at the old house, like my schooling was like I don't know if I could say I had schooling, but it was homeschooling, but not really homeschooling. And basically my dad would just hand us a dictionary and say copy like 100 words into this notebook. And then sometimes on a really nice like day when we would have like a fun game with the those foam letters that kids play with in preschool or whatever you daycare, and you have the letters. So I remember only a few times, and those were the funnest times because one, we got to like we had cookies, which we never had, like, because another thing, we were dirt poor, so like food was very scarce. We weren't allowed to eat certain things, especially like sugar. I was raised vegetarian. So like any candy was not, it was like not allowed because of the pig gelatin in most candies. It's got pork in it, and we're Muslim, so that's another thing. But yeah, so like my schooling was a dictionary, copy these words. And the other part was like a fun game that we would play sometimes on a good day. And that was just put in a word on the board. My stepmom would like put a word, and the letters would be in array, and they would just be, you would have to find them. And so the girls were on a team and the boys were on a team. And then we would just basically rush to whoever spelt the word first. We get the pack of cookies or something. So like
So how'd
that.
you learn how to read?
Oh, yeah. Um, man, so I didn't, I learned how to read a bit when I was like, I want to say maybe 10, when we moved my stepmom's, the second house, my second stepmom. And that was hooked on phonics. I don't know if anyone knows about the tapes and little stories. It goes from green, there's like levels, there's the green, and then there's blue and red. Red's like the hardest. And it went from like the fox, and the rabbit to like Benjamin Franklin. I remember Benjamin Franklin was the 100 story. And there were tapes that you would like and whatever. So that's kind of, because I always like, I didn't want to be like stupid. Like
Yeah.
I hated, like, I wanted to learn. Like that was the thing. It's just like I couldn't, because I don't know, you can't really teach yourself everything, but I believe the hooked on phonics did get me kind of somewhere in that department, but I was still like very like at like a first grade level, like around like 11. And then the second, I guess, education I got was when I moved, and this was like this is in between, so if it's confusing, but I moved to my grandparents before I moved to New York. But at my grandparents, I stayed there for about a year and a half, and she put me in Sylvan Learning Center. That is basically learning on steroids. You're in this like, what is it, like a learning facility or program, and they just catch anyone up, whatever. And so what they like, I took a test, and they told me that I was 11, going 12, yeah, and they said I was at a second grade level in read and like a third grade in math. And basically that was at 12 years, 11 years old, I was at a second grade, third grade level in almost everything, but reading and writing. Writing, for one, I was like, I didn't even know how to write a sentence at 11. Like, and so they kind of helped me with math, but reading and writing, like, I think that was something I had to like learn on my own, because I actually liked reading stories. And when I moved to New York, eventually moved to New York, I was supposed to be in the 8th grade, so I ended up going to the 7th grade, because I knew they were like, Sylvan only caught me up to like a 3rd grade, 4th, and that was like barely. But math was something I was really strong on, and I was able to, I guess I don't know, my brain's a math brain, so I picked up math really quick. But everything else, no. Writing, I kind of despise it till this day, because I was so bad at it. And I know things that we were bad at, we end up like hating it, because, I guess it's a reflection of, for me, it reflected that I felt inadequate and like stupid. And that's not a good feeling, like, to feel
Yeah.
stupid. When in school, especially college, that knowing how to write was kind of the pillar of what makes someone smart, was the way I saw how professors and everyone, that's, is the message was loud and clear. They didn't have to say that, but I knew that if you're a great writer, that was what you were graded on your level of smartness. And so like, I fought against that because yeah, it just showed a weakness that I was not, smart, because I was a horrible writer. And when I was in Sylvan, like I didn't write a paragraph, and I didn't do any of that because I was just like, I can't do this. This is like crazy. But the crazy thing is, when I did go to like school, public school, when I went to New York, it was seventh grade. I was supposed to be in eighth. But they were like, the best we can do is like put you in seventh because you can't be in any grade lower because of your age. Even though they knew I was at fourth, third grade level stuff. And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna shoot for seventh then and just see
Hang
what
on to
happens.
dear life. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the first fucking day in English, uh, she's like, I want you guys for homework to write one-page paper, like an icebreaker. I think it was a one-page paper about ourselves because she was also our advisor, my advisor. And she was like, write a one-page whatever icebreaker, tell me about yourself. Oh my, I was sitting there and like I was just like I was like, holy fuck. Cause I was a goody two shoes too. Like I was like, I just came from like weird La La Land with my dad, like all of that, just what I grew up with, and like not being acclimated with public and my peers. And like I was just such a like recluse. And so I was like freaking the fuck out like that whole day. And I remember what made me write the one-page paper, and it was literally just vomit, like on word vomit. I felt I didn't want to lie to my teacher that I didn't write the paper, because I knew if I didn't write the paper, I would have had to make up some lie to why I didn't do that. And I didn't want to let her down for some reason. I was just like, I don't want to let her down, and I don't want to lie to this teacher. But I was like, somehow I have to write a paper. Like, I don't know how to write a page. I need to do it. Like, I need to. And after like about fucking hours of like just wanting to like rip my hair out and just mentally tormented about this, like, I don't know how to write. I'm so fucking stupid. Like, why am I stupid? Like, why can't I write a page? And there's something happened. I don't know. It was just fright, or like that whole instinct to like fight. I just said, I don't give a fuck what I write. And I just said, fuck it, just write. And I was just like, just write. And I just like was just writing words or whatever. Like, I don't know what the fuck I wrote. I didn't save the paper, but I had a mental break in a good way. And I broke through the wall of like writing. And I think after that, like other things started to like, I started to approach other things that same way of like, when you feel like you're in a mental wall, like, and you like want to bang your head against it to break it through. And just like, yeah, I, and so that's how like writing and reading kind of like, I guess came. I don't know. I don't know. It's like half of it's like, I don't really understand it. And the other part is just the will, I guess, of like,
Yeah.
that's what the brain does. And I'm like, I don't know if I owe it to me, or like just that's how my brain, I was born with a certain brain that operates on a level or whatever it does. But that day to write a like page after like tormenting myself was like, I don't know. And then to read, I ran into the Goosebumps series. Those were a little more because they weren't too hard to read. They were meant for like, I use small children, obviously. And so I got really into Goosebumps. And then I realized books were so great. Reading was so
Oh,
great. And I would just like, and our school had this reading log back in the day. You had to read 70 books by the end of the year. So you had a reading log. I don't know if they do that nowadays, but yeah, so we would end up, you have to log in 70 books by the end of the year. And so I just like ran through the Goosebumps series, and then I would find more books like that. And then I started getting into other books and whatever. And so the love of reading and just that kind of like pushed me into learning. I guess self-educated in a way, but with the help of like Sylvan, and like the teachers were great. They knew my situation.
discovering how cool reading is must have just been don't you wish you had known when you were in that house that whole time, because you could have escaped to all those
Yes.
worlds. I want to back up a little bit. What if you weren't reading? Because you imagine like Little House on the Prairie or whatever, you're living off grid. Like, what are you doing all day? What were you doing all day?
So my dad, he put us on a schedule. We were like, okay, from 8, we used to practice martial arts, whatever that was. And then we used to do, so it was like, let me back up. So in the morning, actually, because we were Muslim, we used to pray at 5:30 in the morning, breakfast. So wake up at 5 to I think 6:30 was prayer. And then after that, there was like breakfast, and then we did martial arts. And then in between there was like meditation for an hour, and then there was like what else? Meditation. We took a nap. Usually there was always like an in-between nap time. And then we're supposed to learn, but like it'd be like a dictionary, and then we'll be like just hanging out in our room, and he would just go to his room, and we would just, but most of the stuff was unorganized. Like we would have those organized days where it's just like, do this, do this, do this. But when he ran off to do whatever the hell he was doing, and my stepmom, she like watched us, it was kind of like, no, there wasn't order. So we like sat around, like not sat, like, yeah, we sat around, and we would just kind of like just communicate with each other in code, because we weren't allowed to talk. Like that's another thing. Like we weren't allowed to like talk and make noises unless it was like spoken to, like speak when you're spoken to, and if it was something that was important, like the stuff like we're teaching, like whatever teachings. But we weren't just allowed to just like blabber off randomly, or not like anything, like because we would just get in trouble. Like that would be like yeah, because we just were supposed to be quiet, and that was that. So we would make up like games amongst ourselves. We would make up code names to call our stepmom and our dad. So we would tell each other like, oh, like if we're doing something, we would like alert the other one that, oh, they're home or they're coming, whatever. And so that it was a lot of just unproductive, like my dad just being like the reign of like over everyone, not really trying to, I guess he tried to have some sort of like order, or like I like best to describe it as like some cult, like because in the sense it's just like, I don't know, but yeah, so we just sat around and tried to, just waste time and not get in trouble, because that was like kind of what it was like. We were living on eggshells like every day. Like that's how it felt. Like anything we did was like it was wrong. It's like you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to go outside. You're not allowed to speak. You're not allowed to watch TV. You're not allowed to eat that. You're just not allowed. That's like the whole thing. You're not allowed. And in our house, it was like one for all for one. So if one person like did something they were not allowed to do, we would all get, in trouble. We would all get, whooping or whatever, belt cord, switches, that's branches from trees. I know it's like old language, switch. But yeah, so I just remember like us just like secretly like hanging out with each other basically in the same house, making up stuff. We used to have this because we coded everything. We used to do AN, like the letter A and an ING. It was just acting. We would hear things on TV, and then we would like reenact them amongst ourselves. And so we would just like pretty much just go off of that, and we just play pretend like all the time. And just to, as a kid, like not have anything to do. It's just, I don't know. It's just like kind of, I don't like, it's like mental. You just go crazy.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
okay, so there was a television. I was going to ask about that. So there was a television, and what was that in the guy's room?
My dad's room.
Your dad's room?
Yeah.
And what sorts of things was he watching that you were overhearing and reenacting?
So we were allowed to watch nature programs only and stuff about like our history and like Africa and stuff like that. Only the stuff that he thought would be educational and like whatever he wanted to sort of instill into us. And so
Let me ask you this. So you're a little bit lighter skin, but are both of your parents black?
they're mixed. Yeah, they're black, African American, whatever, but they're mixed. So I have like my dad's family has like whatever white, black, and Native American. So does my mom's side. So we're just basically white or black and like Native American.
And I was going to ask another thing about, so where was your dad meeting these wives?
Ooh, so I know he met my mom. He was already with my stepmom who had the 9 kids. She they were in New York and they would go to like, I think the market, but I know my mom met my dad on the train or something like that. So I don't, the full story is very like murky, but apparently he would just meet them like at a market or something. And then maybe like other women might know of a woman. And then he would like, yeah, but he met one of his first wives, one of my older brothers that I haven't met. I spoke to him. His mom and my dad went to college together. I found out recently. So he met before he got really insane, I guess, the way, before he like went off the rails, he went to like, yeah, he was in college and then he met his first wife and they had 2 kids. And then she was one of the wives that left before I was born. There was like 2 of them. And there was a crazy story that he basically stole her kids. Like she couldn't, she had no idea where her kids were for 2 years. And then eventually something happened and she was able to get them back from my dad. And then she just like left.
So she
So
took the kids with her?
yeah,
Wow.
it was, yeah, she was like, I don't know where they're at. And it was very hard for her to find like them, but somehow eventually she found them and, she left. But the other 2, my mom passed when I was, I think a couple of months old. So not too long after I was born, she had
Wow.
passed away. So I was raised
How
by
old was she?
33, I believe.
I'm
She was
sorry.
early 30s. Thank you. That was a very strange situation. Because when my mom's side and my dad's side did not get along, and my older brother was 8, and I recently read some papers because her sister, my aunt, passed away recently to cancer like in 2019. And so I ended up cleaning out the house and stuff. And I found letters. It was weird. I found letters from my mom to my aunt. And this was the first, I've never like, I only seen a picture of my mom and I've never actually like how she spoke, never like occurred to me in my head. But reading that was kind of crazy because I'm like, I was so young. So I don't have much, I don't have memories of her. I don't have anything. So it's like, yeah, it's strange. But like, I read some letters from her and my aunt when they were in college back and forth. And, it was crazy. But anyways, but yeah, so my family, my mom and my dad's side, they didn't like him. And they gave my mom an ultimatum. And they were like, you choose him or us. And from the letters that I read, my grandparents were very much like, they were very insuffocated. Even up until she was in college, they wouldn't like, it's just too much on a like encroaching on her and not letting her be an adult. So like that, she chose my dad.
Right.
And she at that time, she had my brother, she from a different father. He left. I don't know anything about my brother's father, but she basically took my brother out of school and ran away with my dad. And yeah, so when I was born, it was, yeah, so a few months after I was born, I believe. And that story is kind of like my birthday, I have an alleged birthday because my mom's death was very like technically it would be a involuntary manslaughter or homicide. And I think if I'm getting this right, involuntary manslaughter is when you caused the death of someone that you didn't necessarily or intentionally mean to murder.
Mm-hmm.
And I think homicide is under that category. I don't know, but I know it's like involuntary manslaughter because my older brother told me a story recently. My, I heard stories my mom had some type of, she wasn't, like she had a lot of kind of issue, like blood or something was wrong. She had an illness and she needed medication for. My dad didn't believe in any of that. He was holistic. So when they met, he threw out all of that and it was like, you can be healed by whatever he says. And I remember my brother, he said, he was like, because he was really attached to my mom, like, which it's like crazy because, he had his own mom, but he was just like, yeah, your mom was like, she was really nice. I freaking loved your mom. I wish she was mine. And this was like, he was 8 years old, 7, and they were having a conversation or whatever. And then my dad, turns out he threw my mom's medication into the fire. Like, and then my brother was like, like she needs that. And he remembers my mom saying, like, those keep me alive. And so he dug his like hand into the fire to try to like get her medication because he was just like, and he was like crying. He was like, I don't want you to die. Like, you need that medication. And I was just like, wow. Like he told me that. And I was like, that's, yeah. And so basically, several months after I was born, the story isn't necessarily, I can't say for sure it's the real, like there's just a lot of lies and stuff that my dad and my stepmom, they won't, I will never talk to my dad again, and my stepmom's never going to tell me the truth. And so there's no point. But from what I've heard, she was sweeping the floor and she was making dinner, a pot of soup. I remember they said it was pumpkin or something. And she, like, my brother, because at the time they were like 7 or 8, they thought she was laughing before she collapsed on the floor. And then what now seems like in hindsight laughter, I think it was a seizure.
Mm.
So whatever medication, I think she was having a seizure. She passed out on the floor, and it turns out for a few days she was kind of dying because my dad wouldn't take her to a hospital because we were on the run, and he doesn't believe in hospitals. So like she was dying like for a few days at the house, and then eventually when it was like he knew, like, you know, he dropped her off at the hospital because I guess, he's like, you can't have she can't die here because what are you going to do with the body? You know what I mean? You can't show up with a dead body at a hospital. You'd rather whatever his
Right.
was, either that or you bury them in your backyard, which I doubt he was willing to do. So it turns out when she got to the hospital, they described her as looking like a frail 13-year-old,
Oh.
and she was in her early 30s. So I'm guessing she had a seizure. She couldn't eat. She was starving for a few days. He dropped off at the hospital, and eventually she passed away at the hospital. He put her under an alias, so there was no connection. And then later on, why I don't have like a real birthday, he said he gave us, basically he made me a year older than I was because in his mind, because my stepmom did this with her kids, and I'm like, something's going on. It's a way to muddy the water of time, the time frame of things.
Mm.
So if someone was brought to a hospital and they were like malnutrition, they died, if authorities were to come back and be like, you might be culpable of their death or whatever, responsible for some reason, you might, well, he was, um, he knew like he didn't want anything to come back to him. Like, so I guess what, like, if you have a kid, you're able to tell like if a person had a kid before. So if you were like a detective, you'd be like, this woman recently had a kid. So we know that if there's any children that are this age, it could be whatever links him, more and more pieces would link together. But if I was like 1 year old instead of like 3 months, that would muddy the time frame of how he knew her, how I was born, and all that stuff.
I see.
So he did that. I'm just assuming his rationale, and that's what makes sense to me, because my stepmom later in life did that to my siblings because she wanted to muddy the waters. Because when my aunt and all of us reconnected, her sister, she was like calling, like she would call the Social Security office or the court, because during all this I had to, like, I had no, during all this, like, whatever, when I only got my Social Security and birth certificate when I was in New York, and I was in 10th grade, and I was like 16 already. So my aunt had to like get all of that on her own. She had to like go to the office, make an affidavit, all this stuff, and they had to prove we weren't illegal aliens. And so she wrote this affidavit, and it was just like basically explaining like like my dad's in a cult. I was part of a cult, and explaining how the way he, just everything. And they were like, okay, we get it. Like they understood it that way, because I guess they were saying like it's a catch-22. That's the like word that I grew up like hearing from my aunt, that the catch-22, whatever my life was. But yeah, so my mom, yeah, so she, like, I had no, I guess, connection with her. So it was just, I don't know, strange. I lost my train of thought.
I wanted to ask you about your birth certificate. So the birth certificate that you have now that you got when you said you were 16,
Yeah.
is that your actual birth certificate with your correct birth date on it?
It doesn't necessarily have a correct, so it's still alleged, because we don't have I don't have a hospital record because I was born at home. I never
Right.
saw a doctor.
Right.
I never was like immunized. So I was like, none of that records show that. So we went off of like the most recent dental records when I moved with my grandparents. I ended up getting my cavities. So that dental record was part of proof. And so that only shows what I was like raised to believe. So it actually has the one my dad told me my birthday was.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was like my official birthday on the birth certificate and my social security like card or whatever it's linked to, but it would show that February 16th. um
Wow.
yeah, yeah, so it was, yeah.
You're an Aquarius?
Yeah.
I love that.
uh
Okay. You're at the house. There's 12 of you. You're talking in code. You're not reading books. You can hear the television. You're not really allowed to watch it unless it's like a nature show. Were there any games were there like cards or board games, or were there books to look at? Like, was there physical things in the house?
oh, we would make up stuff, but they're actually, my dad, because he would do everything that we were not allowed to do, like eat meat, watch TV, have candy. But what we had in the house on occasion, like, was my dad's stuff, which was dominoes and backgammon. So I grew up playing, we would play on the good days, like rare occasions, we would be allowed to play backgammon and dominoes. So I grew up with that. So, and card games, kind of, like, but anything else, no. We did sneak around and watch TV when our dad was out. That's how we got into a lot of trouble. Like, as I remember, a lot of like not a lot, but most of the time, I feel like we were in trouble because my older siblings were like watching, they were watching TV without permission, and they would get caught because my dad would come home and someone who was supposed to be the watcher, because we would look out for each other. Someone's supposed to be like on guard basically, and like look out the window when the car starts to pull up. Someone would alert us, but sometimes you're children, we're like, they're like 9, 10, 6, whatever. Um, that wouldn't happen, and we'd get caught, and then we'll be in trouble. So, and the other times when we didn't get caught, we found a way to like usually put frozen peas, because the fat backs used to get really hot. That's how my dad would know if someone was watching TV. He would come home and put his hand on the TV back. And if it was hot, That means someone
So
was
even
watching.
if he doesn't catch you, he has to check. Jesus, how
Yeah.
petty. What
Yes.
have
Oh,
these motherfuckers been up to?
yep.
Jesus.
Fucking eggshells. Like, oh, man. And it was like, so they would get like the frozen peas out of the refrigerator and like put it on the back of the TV while they were watching TV. So that's how we would see things like the Sailor Moon or something. I grew up like anime. I knew Sailor Moon. That was the only animation like I knew, and some of Batman and Superman because my dad was actually would watch Batman and Superman. He loved the series, I guess. And yeah, he would watch other stuff and he would watch like basketball all the time. I just remember being so bored of like hearing listening to the basketball games go on because we would definitely listen watch because we had like whenever the TV was on, that was like our like, oh my God, something's on TV. Like let's listen. And so we would like
Yeah.
put our ears like really close to the door because we didn't have doors on the house. We had curtains. There were no doors because you're not allowed to have doors under my dad's rule. So
I'm
um
sure he had a door.
yeah. Um oh yeah. Everything like he was allowed to do, we weren't. So
I'm just trying to picture we're still in the 80s. No, we're in the 90s now because you were born in 92. What kind of clothes was everyone wearing? The adults and the kids.
my dad would wear normal clothes, but sometimes he would pull off the because we had to wear we had to have our head covered. The boys didn't have to have their head covered because in when you're growing up is Islamic or Muslim, boys don't cover their head. They wore regular stuff. Sometimes they would wear our like religious outfits, but the girls, like, we weren't ever allowed to wear pants unless we had the dress that went below the knees. We always had our head covered. Um, inside, we didn't have to. Like, if we were at home, we didn't have to have our head covered, but any type of outside, any person coming into the house, you have to have your head covered. Whatever clothes we got, because we always had hand-me-downs from like wherever he got them from. I think one time, I think we would get it from the neighbors. The one neighbor that we knew back at the old house in Lakeland, they gave us some clothes because I remember my stepmom, she basically helped the neighbor with their cat. The cat's head got stuck in this jar and she ended up donating clothes to us, but then our dad like freaked out and was just like, give that back. Because my dad was racist, didn't like white people.
Mhm.
And he's just like, she's a white lady. Why are you taking clothes from like that white woman? Give them back to her and like, don't ever do that again. Yeah. So we just grew up with like kind of normal clothes, but the normal clothes, like I wear dress with pants or mostly pants. I mean, mostly dresses,
Mhm.
um, and then a dress over pants.
Interesting. Very Mormon-y.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're
So
not wearing like silks and saris. It's not like this beautiful cultural. It's just here's my shitty outfit. I'm covered. I hope everybody's happy.
yeah.
Oh
It was like
man.
whatever we can get. Like, I don't ever think we've had clothes that weren't hand-me-downs from like
Yeah.
the market. Because he would, I guess that's how he would make some money. Every now and then he would go to the flea market and we would, assembly line he would sell oils like patchouli and all that stuff. And these boxes of like little vials would come in that we would, unscrew the top, put everything together like he would have us do. And I remember the neighbors after like later on in life, the neighbors, they were like, they thought we were drug dealers because they would just see UPS boxes shipping in every now, like every week or so. But it's just like, oh no. 'Cause I know they thought we were fucking weird. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
looking back, like, oh man, like the outside world was just like, don't ever go to that house.
Good golly. Yeah.
But
Wow. All right. How'd you get out of this mess? Is there more stuff you want to tell me about what's going on in the house?
oh yeah, so how did I get out of this? Oh yeah. Oh, so
I don't want to skip ahead if you're not ready
yeah.
yet.
Um,
But
at the house, let me think because there might be some important stuff other
well, did you
than
guys fight? The siblings,
Um,
or were you all pretty much team each other because of the circumstances?
well, the older siblings would fight. They kind of like my older brother and sister, like they were like, man, the older brother sister that picks on, so they had that kind of dynamic of like the older brother like just wanted to pick on the sister, um, my older sister. But other than that, we wouldn't bicker because that wasn't allowed. We kind of were looking out for each other because we knew like we were all in the same boat, and we were basically more so like tight with each other, but we had like our fractions of like us because there was age groups. There was
Mm-hmm.
like or a late teens to like whatever, like just us like single digits. So there was like three of us. I remember I'm like, because there were like three other siblings got born after in the 96 or whatever. But before that, it was my brother who's like very close. He's like 92 as well, but several months younger than me. And then my other sister who's like a year and a half younger. So we would always be like, we would hang out, and then the middle children would be like they would like hang out and then whatever. So it just we just be in our own little like
Yeah,
group.
that makes
And
sense.
but then there was a time where one of the brother I have that's closest to my age, he would be the snitch, and he would snitch on us to get like cookies from our dad. And we would be so like, oh my God. We would just be so mad at him and like hate him because he just like get us in trouble to like get food. And I get it, like I understand. Like he was like whatever, 7, like not that old. Um, so he would snitch on us if we were doing something to hopefully get whatever cookies my dad brought home. So yeah.
All right. This is just so crazy. And you know what? I'm also thinking like that it's actually like I'm always pretty wowed by people like this in a way because he's keeping all these people alive in America in the 90s where there
Yeah.
isn't anywhere to hide. And it's not like he has money.
Yeah.
I mean, this is quite a feat that he's pulling off. It's impressive.
Because
I just
because the thing about him, my dad, he didn't know he was like smart. So he was able to like, he was a compulsive liar. He's like a very like, he knew how to talk. And so that's how he got like the women to like go along too. Like, and I know after like they had kids, that's kind of like they got trapped more, but more so like he would trap them with like his fake persona. And
mhm.
he would lie. And I guess they consider him handsome. He's not like an ugly dude, I suppose, like statured. And they'd fall for him, and he would lie and like do a big talk
Would he
up,
love
talk.
bomb them?
Yeah, or just and he would just like talk because he was smart. And I know like women love, like we do love a good smart.
He was charismatic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he
And
has all the makings of a cult
yeah,
leader and he's doing it.
yeah, and he knew
I
that
mean,
he could
and I
use.
hate to say it's impressive because it's it's fucked for survivors. But I maybe impressed isn't the right word, but I just know that me, myself personally, I have a hard time getting along in the world. So when I see these dysfunctional people able to live outside, I'm just like, how are you doing that? But I know how they do it. They lie, they manipulate, they have no feelings or empathy. Things don't bother them. They don't second guess themselves or doubt or any of that. So
And they cut like what his main, like most cult leaders do, they cut people off from the outside world,
yeah,
and they cut
isolation.
off from your family. They isolate you. So isolation was a big part of like how he was able to like just have everyone controlled. And he did that. Like
You would
he
think though someone from somewhere would be like, bro, do you know that they got 12 kids up in that house over there and they're all skinny and like you never see them come in or out? Like someone would have called someone. He got away with it for years. In the
well
year of our Lord, whatever, when we've got CPS and all these Not that CPS is, I mean, as we're all learning, I mean, Twitter has just opened up a whole world to me. I don't trust any organization or a group. If it's a group or an organization, I don't know. When more than
Yeah.
one person gets together, we're culty all of a sudden. Don't make friends. Don't like, I don't know.
But
Everything.
then people like everything's a cult. Like, no.
Well, I was talking about how your dad was getting away with this for so many years,
Isolation,
able
yeah.
to hide it.
Isolation.
The
And he had
isolation, right?
like I said, we were not allowed to be in public, so he hid us away. He hid us away from my family. Like when Twin Towers went down, like that's a whole like crazy butterfly effect. That's like we'll get into it, but he, because I remember reading, like my aunt hired a detective to find my mom, her sister, for years. And I saw the paperwork and all this when I was going through her stuff when she passed, and I was like able to see all this stuff I never saw before. And I read an email between a detective, and he's like, "We have no leads, like no leads." Like she actually tried, but he took away their paperwork, gave us other like fake names and all that stuff. So in the 80s and the 90s too, were like, yeah, it was, I think people just minded their business a little more than they would now too. There's no cameras,
Right.
technology wasn't advanced enough, like because the neighbors knew like we were sketch. Like I just think they were like, no, we're not touching that. Like, it's Florida, weird shit happens all the time. They're like,
Yeah.
whatever. That's
Yeah. And there's code for certain, and I know this because, I grew up, in the lower middle class and less. And there's a code. You just shut the fuck up and mind your own business in the neighborhood, in the building where you live, anything. And yeah, that was actually weird. I can't say, I'll tell you off camera, but yeah, that's a thing. Um, I, I don't want to get you sidetracked, but I'm curious because one of the things I'm always interested in with stories like this is how normal and well-adjusted people who speak out seem to be. Because I've spoken with other cult survivors and they're incredibly kind and intelligent and all of these things. And I'm just curious because we know that you can have 9 kids and they will all come out different. I'm curious what your siblings are like.
yeah, that is true.
And they
It's
probably come in a wide array.
Yeah. And the fucked up thing is, I guess, out of all of this, not all of us end up like like looking like I might be still crazy. No, but I had my insanity moments, and I was able to,
Well,
you
you
know,
didn't show up to this drunk. You're in a home that you're working on. You know what I mean? Like you're doing all
yeah,
right. You're well spoken. You could be, we know so many other options.
exactly the vicious
So
cycle.
yeah, we know you're doing great.
Yeah. So my brother, my older brother, he's not doing well. Like I think the boys, at least the older kids, the older boys, my brothers, one of them he's been struggling with addiction
Mhm.
since his 20s. Like what he got in trouble for was a little bullshit. He was selling weed outside of school premises, and that's what got him his first like mark, like prison mark. And then he went to jail for a few months. And then after that, like it kind of just kept spiraling. And
Yeah.
now he's 40s. He's never he never got, on his feet,
Yeah.
held onto the rock that was life, and I think, and for him, like I always, because I'm like, at a certain point, like he's a tornado, like I always, like, it's hard to like juggle that, like feeling bad for him, and like 'cause being like, people don't understand when you have addicts for family members, like it's not just like, oh, they are just like, you need to live with one for years and then come back to me, please. Like other than that, like shut the fuck up. And it's just
Yeah.
like it's very hard to stay on that rope of like knowing they're your sibling and you deal with what they were like before, and that memory of them, and you're struggling with that, but then not letting the tornado like take you. And that's the hard part. Like can't talk, I couldn't like, I don't really talk to, it's just like, it's you know, he's like, you don't know how to talk to them anymore because the tornado, you can't talk to something that's going to like be destructive. And
Yeah. I
he,
think a lot of people, I definitely relate to that on a personal level. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think a lot of people, anyone who deals with that, they know exactly what you're talking about. That is just, it sucks. It's heartbreaking. It sucks for everybody. It's so hard to watch someone suffering and you can't help. You can't. Oh, that's just one of the worst
like,
parts of life.
and it's just like they are stuck in time because since his 20s and 40s, you know, like he's not moving anywhere. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm moving in time. He's not.
Yeah.
And it's hard
Right.
to even bring yourself back to there mentally. So it's just like you have to, in a sense, cut them off. And
You
that's
have
what's the
to.
struggle part because you're like, they are your family. And you're like, it fucking feels terrible. And every day you think about that. Some days you don't, like most days I'm just like, you know, you just gotta make a decision, like be destroyed, you know, or let them destroy themselves. Because you can't do much at a certain point. But I always hope that maybe he'll turn around, but he lost his mom when he was 8. And that's our mom. I
Mm.
didn't know her like he knew her. And from what I gather from my siblings, like I said, she was very, they loved her. Like she was a good mom, she was a good person. And my brother didn't have a dad. I had my dad, but his dad, you know, left as well. Like, so having to be like 7 or whatever, 8 years old and losing your anchor, your mom that you're really close to, like I can't, even though I lost her too, I'm not in the same boat as him. So like that he held on to that, like never let go. And I think he's acknowledged it once that he knows that his emotions, he let that ruin his life and like, you know, become an addict that he's still suffering, like because he's been into like get hit by a car like 3 times. He got hit by a car recently because he's on drugs and then running into traffic. And yeah, so my other brother, he's not an addict, but he's not, you know, not in where he should be.
Mhm.
So he's, and he's suffered with depression because, you know, they didn't like, and, you know, just like stuff they never, it was for a while, like I stopped talking to a lot of we kind of like grew apart because when I went to my aunt's, I went to New York. I went to school, public school. I started getting introduced to like different, I guess, peers and like my aunt's ideology and like all that stuff. So and then I realized I went to high school and then college, and I would go back, and it seemed like they were still stuck in time. And it was like, I can't keep doing that. I'm like, why aren't you getting an education? Like, you're not, you don't need a formal education, but like, I think like learning how to read, learning how to write, because I was just like, how do you guys, what are you doing? You know, you're not around our dad anymore. There's no excuse. And as I was growing and going to high school and learning, they weren't. Now they're better. Like, luckily, they said playing video games all that whole time and reading manga taught them at least how to read,
You
you
know,
know.
that's comic books. Thank God for them because that teaches a lot of people how to read. Because
Yeah.
school's fucked. We know the school
Yeah.
system sucks. The way they do it, it's like prison. They're just gearing people up for prison. It looks the same. It sounds the same. It is the same. The lunch is the fucking same. The kids are
Disgusting.
torturing each other. It's all a goddamn training ground for prison. Nobody
And
likes
yeah,
that shit.
and it's kind of fucked up. Yeah. Oh my, the lighten, like the food, everything. I only went to college, like I don't, that's why I don't rag anyone for not getting a formal education. I only went to college because I knew my aunt. Like that was for her, and that was a life chore that your family expects you. But if I could go back for one, I would go to community college. I went to a small liberal arts school and I got a scholarship, but it was that school, like I could have just went to community college and been fine. But the rest of them, they're better now because as we like are going through time, 5 years they were like it was different than it is now, and I do give them credit. But there was a while where we all ended up in like a different roll of the dice. Like we were just And I guess I get a lot of credit. Like I don't like patting myself on the back. I just don't understand people giving me credit because I don't get it. And they just like, because my older like brother would just be like, oh, can you do this for me? And like, you know how to do it. And I'm just telling him like, I know how to do this because I took the time. Like I had to put in the work, I
Yeah.
didn't just land on my goddamn feet after all we went through. Like I literally fucking put in the work. I had my depression just like you, fucking struggled. Like, I have my moments. Like I don't wear my heart on my sleeve, my emotional order disorders on sleeves. Like I don't. So you're not gonna see me, And the last thing like I will ever be is like I would never wear like victim, like I would never use those cards. People will like, yeah, I have probably all of them in my back pocket, but like no, I'm not, I will never ever do that. Never use
Well, and
the
this is why people pat you on the back and why you do deserve credit, because like I've been a whiny little bitch in my life and I didn't fucking grow up like that. Resilience is hard to come by in our culture, and it is impressive when you see someone succeed in spite of, it's like, or survive even in spite of. I know people, I come from a big family and there's addiction everywhere for lots of different reasons. I've lost two people who didn't have their moms and there was addiction in their family. Like, some people don't fucking make it, man. So yeah, I mean, I know you don't want to go around being like, yay me, but I'll do it for you. Yay, you.
day. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I compliments, it's just
I know.
I always felt weird about them, and it's just a mixed bag of like I didn't grow up with it, so it's not anything I was ever used to, and it's felt so normal, like you said, how normal, like what is like my life growing up. That's all I knew. Like
Right.
I was in a box, and so like it's hard to see it through the lens of other people, but when I told like my college friends, they like didn't know shit about me because like I said, I don't wear anything, like I don't do that. Like I'm not gonna, you ask me a question, I'm very honest with like telling my story for sure, because I don't see that as, I'm not using it to like in any way. People ask questions and I have to tell them, and then they get confused, and I'm like, yeah, this and that, and they have to like, and then I'll cut it short, but I have to
Yeah, then you
sometimes,
have to explain more to explain the other
yeah,
thing. I
but
know.
I'll
Yeah.
tell them, and I'm like, yeah, and they just like would just be like, kind of like, wait, what? You're just like, oh
That's
yeah,
what's so great about conversations like this, because you can tell all the steps. Most people there ask about it and then you've got 5 minutes and you're like, why would I even start to tell you? Because I can't give you a picture that's going to do me justice. So why
Mhm.
the fuck am I going to jump down this lane with you and then be like, hey, bye, have a nice life. I'm glad I shared
Yeah,
that with you.
exactly. It's like the small talk. I can't do that. Like people like, how are you doing? How's your day? Like you don't fucking want me to go in to really tell you how I feel about today. I will tell
Yeah.
you. No, I'm like, I'm fine, cool. But yeah, I don't, and I don't know, and I was talking to a friend about like, because after I did, the Basel space, people were like, oh my God, I was questioning like whether we are born with a certain core or a mind that allows me and my brother or whether to whoever it is when we're born technically in the same situation environment, right? And we ended up all different. And I guess I ended up the most on my feet. According to, I don't, this is not my words. My
Right.
siblings give me high praises, and I'm like, I'm like, I don't,
Yeah.
I'm just like,
That is one of the most interesting things. They talk about that when you're in school and you're studying psychology, about how children in this group, they could have the same parents, same upbringing, everything, but you're still going to get a different result just because of the dynamics between the children themselves, the dynamic between that child and that parent, and it's different with every child. And each child is not having the same experience, because even
mhm.
if the parents are trying to treat all the kids the same, they don't.
Because the way you internalize the world through your eyes, it's gonna generate back, like reflect,
Correct.
keep like back and forth. And that's what I think the brain capacity or whatever neuroplasticity that's in there, like, was I born with that brain to have the ability to reflect the environment in a way or absorb it, then to then have my inputs and outputs be different. You know,
Yeah.
have the brain capacity to get through a wall where some people's brains will not, like the
Well,
story
like
I
being stuck.
being
Like
stuck.
you're allowing yourself to move through time and be like, okay, that was that. This is now. I'm allowed to be different. I'm allowed to respond different. You're right. Some people can't even see
That thought doesn't
that.
even come in their head. And I realized growing up, getting older helped those pathways also develop, because
Mhm.
I owe a lot to like my sanity to just growing up and like getting older, because I was looking at it through a lens of like, I'm weird. I'm trying to basically, everyone's a square around me in my life. And I'm trying to acclimate myself into a square when I'm not. I'm like a circle. And I'm like, my whole life, I was middle school trying to be a square for their sake, for their appeasement, for their, because people get weird when I'm the circle and everyone, I wanted to make them feel less weird that I was a circle
Right.
and square. So I always was looking, and then I was just like, you know what? No one's fucking trying to make me comfortable about being a circle. They're not trying to bend themselves into a circle. Like, so I was just like, why should I continue this? And then I was just like, I'm not supposed to be a square like I thought I was, because I'm like, my life situations, if of course it's different. I'm not supposed to be the same shape as them. Like, and then realizing that, like, oh, the stuff, your life and all that happening, it made you're not gonna ever be the same as them. Like, I don't know, but that was realizing that you're supposed to be different.
Mhm.
That's the reality of it. And it's just like, okay, you're like, oh, cool. So I'm supposed to be like this, and that's normal. So it becomes a normal that I figured wasn't normal my whole life. So that was the thing. Like when you're kids and when you're younger, I guess you just want to be normal.
Yeah.
And
You want to be just like
it's
everybody else.
normal and everybody else. And then growing up, when you get older, I guess some of us, maybe not all of us, but at least for me, you just say, oh fuck, I don't give a fuck, I'm an adult. Like, like I'm grown now, so like what the fuck does it matter? Like I thought. And so like, yeah, I just was like, okay, those thoughts, like, and I'm wondering, those thoughts, my brain allowed me to have those thoughts. And then my aunt told me I had a conversation with my aunt, and she was like, I forgot what it was. And then we had good conversation, because she was, I guess, because I like to be philosophical, and she's not used to that. So we would have long conversations, and she would just be interested in like my thoughts. And one time I was saying something, and then I was expecting other people to have that same thought.
Mm-hmm.
She just said, like some people that thought wouldn't even occur in their mind. So, and it was just like, yeah, you're right. Like, I'm thinking this, those thoughts may never ever occur to someone. So how would they even get an idea to like change a view or like get past something?
Right.
It's just not there. You can't, like, it's hard to think like, oh, that thought never even comes to someone's head to get them through something or
I
to,
have that same, that is so hard for me to accept sometimes. So with certain things, you're just like, how? I'm sorry. There is literally no other way to see this. I
yeah,
was like, yeah, there fucking is. I'm like, how?
million. I'm not gonna say it. I was gonna say a million stupid ways people can see things. You're just like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Your aunt, it was interesting that you said that, you went to college because it was expected of you. And that's a really interesting thing that you said. And to use that exact word, because, when we're young, we don't like when people put their expectations on us. But then you look, when you're older, you'll see families kids that maybe had two parents and are like, hey, this is how life goes, and you're going to do this, and then you go to college and everybody's invested in that and they support you in that. That does, when someone cares about what you're going to be doing, it does help motivate you to do it. And that's, that's I guess sometimes that can be a real privilege to have that someone expected that of you,
Yeah.
because it could have been that no one expected anything of you.
And yeah, because like, yeah, it's like I guess a double-edged sword, because then you also don't want to fail. Like for me, I like a lot of like pressure. The reason I wrote that paper, there was something in me that I just, yeah, I had this, like, I guess I get it from my mom, because she was such a like, I heard she like, I don't like you to throw the word empath around, but like, because we're all empathic. But I think she had a little more than like the normal amount. And I think I got some of that. And it used to drive me fucking nuts. Like I called it a curse. And I was just, 'cause I just hate, I didn't like the feeling to like feel bad like all the time. Like it made me depressed. So like a lot of that like failure, not writing the paper, what I'm gonna fail my teacher. I'm going to like fail my aunt if I don't do this. So I guess most of it leans on that, rather than like, I never knew how to absorb what you would get from someone being proud of you, or like
Mm-hmm.
expectations. It was more that I didn't want to disappoint, rather than someone being there for me as a what do you call it? Like an anchor.
Oh, like a cheerleader,
Yeah,
like
like it was,
to,
yeah.
yeah.
So being a chore.
Yeah, there's some of, and then I don't really have a way to articulate this, but some of what you're saying, there's a quality about you. Like you're saying, like maybe there is a part, I think there is a quality about you that is a little special in that way, because you're very much reminding me of my husband. My husband had very difficult circumstances and he doesn't fucking complain about anything. And he doesn't, he just, all of it, he's just like, I have a problem, I have to do this, I don't have a choice, I have to.
Yeah.
And then he just does it and gets on.
And that's like, that was the realization I had, like, because I went through like in college, because that was another juxtaposition that I like went through, because because in high school, like it was different, but at least my peers had some type of similarity, because some of them were living with their grandparents. It was a majority, like it was public school, majority of kids lived in like the projects. They were kind of, but I was able to like kind of relate to them a little more than college, which was just total white picket fence, like like different. And that was another, I wasn't ready for that.
Where'd you go to school? Can you say? You don't have to say
Um,
anything, but.
yeah, upstate New York,
Mhm.
Hamilton College,
And what kind of school is that?
small liberal arts,
It's what?
small liberal arts school.
Okay. Oh, you
Uh,
said that already.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like I remember thinking, like feeling like shit, like whenever I felt like shit or depressed, and like those waves come, and you're just like, fuck, can't do anything about it. They just gotta let the wave come. Because you like, people forget, like when they hear stories like mine, and like I do like to share them, and I think that's part of my duty, is like people that go through a hard time, like why to write a book, I think is the most important thing to do, or like have something to give to others. Because I've read books like a child called, and I read stories of heart, and people, one, they liked tragedies for one, they don't, and others like to need it for their own, you know, to get through. And I think, why go through all that shit for nothing?
Right.
You might as well get some gold nugget out of it, do something. But I remember thinking, like, I wish people know, like, life, like, you just gotta do it, because like you're gonna get fucking left behind. Like as I became, like I was 19, 20, I realized you're not 14 and you don't get to have your moments of where the school teachers, like, you gotta get it put in therapy for, your depression and whatever have nots of self-destruction that you're going through. You don't get those like moments to do that when you're older. And I had those moments when I was in high school, but I was, 14, 15. You get a pass. But at a certain age, 18, 21, people stop, like it's like over, like you just have to, it's like no one gives a fuck basically about what you went through. Like
Yeah.
if you can't like let that stop you from doing something, because even if they do care, there's nothing you can do if you stop. Like you just gotta do it, get it done, like keep moving. Like if you don't move, like you get stumbled on, like you get left behind. And that was kind of my like nobody gives a shit. Like and I was like, oh yeah, no one is like, they can't do anything about your life story. It's like no one, to approach it in the way like, to not say that no one gave a shit, but it's more like think of it as no one gives a shit what you went through. So now what? You know?
Right. Right. The book thing, yeah. So I very much agree with you about sharing, and I love that you love to talk about it, just your upbringing and everything. I'm very much of the, I mean, I don't know what happens after we die. So for all I know, this is all we get. I'm not saying that that's a fact. I'm just saying that's the only part that I know of. And I'm not a big fan of secrets when it comes to hardships in people's lives and like the ugly and the things that people don't want to talk about, because I just feel like there's too much to learn and really bond and create understanding. Like, I don't, if you keep that shit to yourself, how do you connect with people?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it is a lot to ask someone. Like I remember I'm struck because everyone, like since I'm middle school, and I tell my like I had, I guess I don't know if I love it. It's just like I like to be honest. That's the
right.
thing. I because I guess I don't know. It's not that I hate telling my story. It's just like I don't want to bottle it up. So like I like telling it because like it just it's like the truth. Like and
Yeah.
I need the truth. Like to like if you ask me a question, I'm gonna tell it to the fullest as I can. It's a lot to ask someone, and I struggle with whether I'm gonna write a book or not, because one, I was worried about my family, their privacy, and I don't want to ever encroach on them
Hmm.
because it's my decision to go public, not theirs or whatever in my.
Right.
Then, the other part is how much do you want to share? Because some stuff I know like it's hard, but I think a lot of people that go through stuff, I don't think I want to be able to share everything because I know the person reading it is gonna have that same like secret or something. And a lot of people who write books, I know they leave out stuff because some stuff you just, I get it. Like, and I'm like, and I was struggling to like see how much I want to really reveal about what it is to be a person and what mental stuff you go through. And the most craziest important stuff is the stuff you want to leave out because it's like, but I'm like, that's why you write it though. You
Hmm.
other people to know that that's what happens, those things. So one, it's just like I'm gonna a pseudonym and a pen name, and the other, like the structure, but the structure is because, like you said, I think the perspective of how we all went through the same thing is different. So it's
Yeah.
not about me telling a story of us 12 like living. It's about how I perceive living in that situation through the
Right.
lens of me, and that's what the
Right.
book is, the lens through me, and I can separate my other siblings, other people for privacy. And if it just goes through that, lens, I'm like, okay, but like for like fucking years, people like write a book, and I'm like, one, writing's like my enemy, and
Oh my God, right? That is a big ask of you especially, but I bet you'll end up doing it.
I will, because it's a duty that I know I have to partake in. It's like I said, the rationale, it's like going through all that, not having parents, not having whatever I can label put on it. It's like, not don't let all of that fuckery be for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever financial shit, I'll say it if the book gets me financial stuff too. Like that, I'd fucking deserve a gold
Of
nugget.
course.
So it's just like that, and then someone else deserves to read it, and yeah, it's just like I'm gonna at least try. Like, I have a friend that's gonna help me.
I mean, I
They're
can already, I mean, it's
they're
like,
great.
I already want to see the freaking Netflix series. You know what I mean? Like
I
it's a
got
good
fucking
story.
approached kind of for a Netflix for. I knew a person. I was in Sweden. His sister was in contact with a Netflix executive. He wanted me to talk to his sister about my story to like, because he was like, you should be in a Netflix thing, and I'm like, I don't know, but I think that when the book comes, maybe that will land later. But other than
Yeah.
that, like, it would be cool to, be involved in the arts again in some manner, and then just to like give something out of whatever, fuckery life throws. I know people like to read tragedy, so for that reason, but for the other reason, the few that do read it for their own troubles, because I know the majority of readers are reading it for their own entertainment, to be like, oh my God, I'm so glad, like, my life, it gives them like some like, oh my God, yeah. And then
It's,
you can get on. But the other people reading that are like, fuck, they're the least amount of people read the book are the ones that really need it,
yeah.
to help another person in a situation that they may be in, or to give them some hope.
Tell me how did you leave the day you left? What was that day? How did that even happen?
So yeah, that's a funny, strange, like, it's crazy. So the whole concept of like, so my dad, given the cult leader qualities he had, when we left when it was connection to the Twin Towers, which is like a strange in itself. The whole butterfly effect, I was like, I would bring up later. My dad kept my family away from us for as long as he could. When the Twin Towers went down, that isolation, because my family's from New York, his family's whatever from New York, the isolation, he had to basically build that bridge back and reconnect. So he opened that door, he could not close again. And what happened, the Twin Towers going down sort of triggered that. Someone in New York, he knew. And this is the first time I seen my dad like freak out and cry. Like, I was 8, I didn't even know what the Twin Towers were. I didn't know what New York was. I'm sitting at home. This was when we moved to our second mom's house, or the stepmom's house. So we were still there, but we had moved to a more normal house where we had plumbing.
Tell me how old you are.
This was 2020. So I think she moved there in maybe 1999 or early to 2020. I mean, not 2020. Wow, I'm jumping to time. 2000. So this was like
You're like
2000.
7-ish.
Yeah.
And you don't
Mhm.
even know that New York is a place.
Yes, no.
You don't know that Paris is a place? Do you know of any of those places?
Oh, oh,
Okay,
nothing.
keep
I didn't
going.
even know the Twin Towers were. When they said the Twin Towers, I didn't know they were buildings. I'm sitting there, my dad's watching TV that morning, and we are kind of like loitering around and like walking. And my dad, the air in the room is just like crazy, because my dad, we grew up, um, emotions was frowned upon. Like, you were considered weak. So even as girls, we weren't allowed to cry. It struggled for me to cry in front of people for a long time, because I was so embarrassed to cry. One, especially in front of people, because it's just like, oh, I'm weak. Like, but my dad never cried. He cried once because he was a manipulator and he wanted to get his way, and that was a different story. But he made this whole to get sympathy.
Did he just, did a tear come out that one time?
No. And
Okay.
it was a whole fucking like, I'm blind, and we are like, your eyes are closed.
Oh
It
my
was like,
God. There's nothing worse than a fake crier that can't produce a fucking tear, man. Just
this
save it.
time, this
Anyway,
time,
go on.
yeah, this time was like, yeah, just like crocodile tears. No, yeah, but so this time was like different. And I was just like, oh my God, my dad's freaking out. And he's crying, like real tears. Someone in New York he thought was in the Twin Towers died. And he said his brother. And, back, my dad was a part of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is before Al Qaeda was the Muslim Brotherhood. He was into that stuff. He, he was pretty happy when the Twin Towers went down, just like a lot of, in his circle. he was like my brother. Like he was crying over his brother. He doesn't know if he's dead or not. And in hindsight, my dad doesn't have a brother. And I'm like, oh, maybe Muslim Brotherhood. But so like my dad was freaking out. He that like a couple of months, I forgot what it was. I forgot, but a couple of months he started contacting people in New York to find out information about, because the power line shut down. I don't know how long that lasts between you can get in contact with people in New York. I know it
I
was
think
like,
it was a couple days, maybe. It was crazy there for a minute.
yeah, so he was freaking out trying to get information that he couldn't get. And so he knew my family because he, had my whatever paperwork. He knew my family was through New York. So he had to basically reconnect. So the isolation bubble burst. And then we ended up meeting my aunt, my mom's sister for the first time in New York a few months. I mean, not in yeah, he drove to New York a couple months later. He started calling like my family, and then he made I read this in a paper because not a paper, the detective, my aunt, she was like, she wrote to him and she's just like, he showed up and they're saying my sister's dead, but there's no death certificate. And she was explaining she don't know what the fuck is going on. They were discussing whether they're gonna call the police, but she was like, he showed up. My sister's, he's claiming she's dead. And this is 15 years later.
Right.
So yeah, so we show up in New York. My aunt, for the first time, my mom's sister sees me. I wasn't born. She knew my sister was in the belly. She knew my brother. He was 8, so she knew him. She knew, like she said in the file that I was reading, it was like she wasn't sure that my dad was telling the truth about me. And she was like, they say that I'm, LZ is my sister's daughter, but there's no proof. They knew my other sister, the only full sister, because she was in the belly by the time like she left. So that was true. And they were like, okay, that's true. But other than that, they were like, it was just, we went to New York. And I remember they ordered pizza, and this was my mom's family because they lived in the Bronx, my grandparents, and we were in their house. And I remember everyone was like crying because she found out her sister's dead. My mom was like, my mom died, and in a sketch manner. And I knew they were livid too because they fucking hated my dad. And they probably knew how she died, and they probably thought he murdered her for sure. Like, that's probably what was going through their mind. Like, he murdered her. And that's why there's no death certificate. And like, you're just making up shit. You can't say someone's dead without showing me proof. And they're like, hello. And so then and you know how my dad was very two-faced in person. Like he would like pretend like the way we were living didn't happen. So no one knew, even his family didn't know that, the way he treated us and my stepmoms. They had no clue. They're like, oh, he's just a normal guy. They didn't know all the shit we went through. And so like recently his sister had found out, my aunt, his sister, she fucking like disowned him. And she's like, I had no idea. He didn't tell me, he lied. He said it was all your stepmoms. They turned you guys against me. But yeah, so he like acts different in front of people. So he wasn't able to pull his like shit. And they knew him, they have history. So they're like, you're not pulling your cult leader bullshit on me. Like, no. And I think he was afraid that they were going to call the cops. Like, so he was treading very lightly. And demands were like not in his favor. Like he had no like, but some reason he thought it was important enough to contact them because of the whole Twin Towers going down. Someone he knew. And so after that, they basically didn't allow him to escape into the dark again. And then my other stepmom, her mom found out, and so they got reconnected like after years. And so he was trying to play it off like, haha, it's normal. And so basically the whole Twin Towers going down, I don't know if I would be here or like still under his reign if the Twin Towers never went down, for him to even initiate the whole isolation, ending the isolation amongst our family and everything. But that's when I knew it changed. And like after that, the family was like, we're taking our daughters back. My stepmom, her mom, And my aunt, they were like basically making a plan to like get us. And eventually my dad, because in order to seem like he has power, he was like disowning us. He gave my siblings an ultimatum. Me and my
Like,
sister.
bitch, we don't even like you. Disowning us. Come on now.
Exactly, because what happened was my stepmom's grandparents or mom, they were like, my daughter's gonna live with us. And my dad felt that like he's not gonna like fight. Like, what are you gonna do? Like they're gonna call the cops on you, and he didn't want to go to jail. So he basically was then like fine, like a tantrum and like I'm disowning you guys. And then he got us like he told us like you have to choose either them or me. And if you choose your moms, you know, I'm disowning you guys. Like that's it. Like we were like, okay.
Please.
But yeah, so like unfortunately, me and my sister left our dad several months later, and that was through some other type of plan amongst my stepmom. But for my other siblings, they went with their mom. My dad said me and my sister didn't have a choice because we only had one parent, which was him. They have a choice because he's like, that's their mom. Like they get to go. You guys stay with me. So we stayed with my dad a little longer than the rest of my siblings. And then my stepmom, we went to her family, her relatives one time. And then my dad got into like some argument or something and she like kicked him out. So we came back, he was gone. And I think I didn't know until like kind of recently that she was purposely planning to get me and my sister away from my dad. And she sent us to my grandma's. And that was like early 2000, like 2 or 1, 2003 or something. But we got back, our dad was gone. We knew something happened. So we're like, and then she contacts my grandparents, my mom's side. She's like, you're gonna go to your grandparents for 2 weeks. We thought, yeah, we were like, all right, we're visiting our grandparents and we're gonna come back. I was not happy to come back. So we just like, oh fuck yes. Like we get to go away for 2 weeks, not be around our dad or whatever, didn't like her. We ended up staying there for a year and a half. She never, sent us back. And I was happy. I didn't think anything of it. Some people like, oh, she left you guys there. Oh, she left you guys there. And I'm like, oh yeah. Like I found out later. Yeah, she like left us there to get us away from our dad.
On purpose.
Yeah. So I ended up being with my grandparents and just never communicated with our dad again after that.
So
But
the last time you saw your dad, you were how old?
Maybe I want to say I'm trying to think of the years. My math is like getting all jumbled. Maybe 11, 10, 11. No, 11. Yeah, 11. Yeah, 11. And I think I can't remember. There was this one time we got invited to a funeral because one of my stepmoms, like oh my God. She was still talking to him after we like got away. I found out later that she was kind of still in communication with him. And we were just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But Stockholm syndrome. And like, I can't blame her for whatever. She went through a lot. Like
And
my
they
dad
have
was,
kids together, right?
yeah. And
So,
he was
yeah.
like super abusive towards her more than my other stepmom. She was like on our level because like he treated her like she was a kid, like she would get the brunt of like most of like whatever, and he would try to make us like give her like punishment too on occasions to like further I guess turn us against her or like instill something in us to like get us to be like him. I don't know, but like as a kid I just knew like I'm not, like I don't know, like I had to like when you're 6 or whatever, 7, like someone tells you to hit someone else, you know, I was just like, I don't know, but I remember like those incidents, like she would be the one, he would never tell us to do that to the other stepmom, like hit her too, that would never happen with the other one. She had she had more of a don't fuck with me, but he would you know, she would get some of the abuse, but I think from the beginning, she kind of like set a standard for herself,
Mhm.
even though she was still in the whatever situation. Whereas my other stepmom, she was like very passive and she got like, you know, treated like a, she got all of most of the beatings from my dad. Yeah, he was just super abusive to her. So I understand why she probably was still in communication with him, given the mental circumstances that she went through, having 9 kids with him. Like,
God dang.
just because I remember getting angry at her and like kind of laid it on her. And this one text message, I felt automatically bad after, and I just had to apologize. But I had to like the boundaries, like.
Yeah.
But I did like I explained to her like, yeah, you know, kind of had a chat, like, you know, I'm not excusing your behavior, but yeah, I do understand the shit you went through and like having to have 9 kids and look after them and be trapped, you know, it's crazy. It must put your
I'm
mind.
trying to think of like, what does she do about diapers? Where do you guys go to the bathroom? How do you
Oh,
stay
like
clean?
old school. So here's like at the old house, because it was a shack, you know, like in the 1920s when you had the tin tubs and you hung all your
Mhm,
shit
mhm,
outside.
mhm.
Basically, we were like transported in like a time zone when plumbing didn't exist.
Yeah.
So basically, whatever plumbing didn't exist, the same thing you did there. You had potties, you had your outside potty house. You we had the well, so the water came from the well, and we would boil our water outside on the fire pit. We would cook our food on the fire pit. My stepmom would just hand wash all the clothes in, you know, the little bucket and hang them to dry.
So
Uh,
being outside and doing that kind of stuff, what do you like behind the building where people can't see you guys? Because I know you can't
yeah,
really like be
we
outside,
had
but
a fence. So imagine like bushes. There was like this area had bushes, and then there was like fences that were put up, but it was more so like in the woods, bushes,
got it.
and then you had the whatever the neighbors. So it was secluded because um in Florida, like yeah, it's like remote. Like I mean, there's just fewer, there's not like a neighborhood house where you have a
Right.
sidewalk and house. It's totally not. You have a trailer maybe next door, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
that's like wherever it is. So like it was a trailer, and we used to also steal from the trailer because we were like, we need food. And my brothers, my older brothers, they were, yeah, they were put their neck on the line because like I remember hearing stories about the train track. In my head, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what train tracks were like at that age. Like when they told us we have to go across the train tracks, this wild imagination of like them jumping over something that I didn't really know, but it seemed scary. All they did was walk over the train tracks because they used to say we're gonna go across the train tracks because across the train tracks was the Winn-Dixie. And that was the closest store walking
Mhm.
distance that I knew about that they would go and sneak and steal stuff from. When we were hungry, they were like, "Oh, let's go. We know about this store." And so obviously they wait till our dad's gone. They would just sneak out. And I remember one time our dad came back early and they didn't get back yet, and we were just like, "Oh fuck!" We were freaking out because we're like, "They're gonna get in trouble. They're gonna get so in trouble." They're like stealing from Winn-Dixie, and one they're like taking candy. Our dad came in. We somehow were like, they were like, where are they? And we are like, they're with our fake uncle. His first member, I guess, the fake uncle. And luckily our dad didn't check because he was like, okay, he went in his room. And then our brothers get back and they're like kind of peeking their head on the window. And then we're like basically signaling to them like he's here, like, oh my God, like, you know, and they just fucking empty out all the snacks they stole from their pocket. They leave it by the window. And this time it was getting dark. So they
I'm
drop
like,
it.
the minute you said that they went to Winn-Dixie to steal food, I'm just sitting there thinking like how exciting that would have been. I'm like excited for them to steal food for you. Like, what did you get?
It was like crackers, bubble gum. It was like stupid shit. And I remember what was so sad about that day is all that for nothing because they had to drop it in their pockets, right? I mean, they had to like take everything out so our dad wouldn't see, and then they came back in, snuck in. Our dad comes back, and we're trying to wait till he goes to sleep or somehow distraction. the ants in Florida. This was we had sand, there was no grass. The ants fucking came to that shit like immediately, ruined it, couldn't eat any of the shit they stole. The ants. We
Even
might
the
as well eat
insects
gum.
are against you.
Yeah.
You can't have anything nice. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And I was like, fuck. And yeah,
That is a real slap in the, that is so, see, that's a scene in the Netflix. That is so sad.
yeah, it was like, oh
I
man.
can't imagine being a kid and being so excited and so fucking hungry, and this thing is so rare,
Mhm.
and that's
Yeah,
what happens to it.
yeah. The fucking
I'd
ants.
rather dad would have taken it from me and beat me than the ants take it.
Because we tried to like salvage it. I think we salvaged some pieces of gums because you can actually like pick them off the gum, but like the crackers and all that stuff, like it was like, yeah, it was like we were so like, fuck. We were like, fuck, man. Like did all of that. Like they fucking stole the clerk. And I remember my brothers telling me the story later. They were like, I remember when they went in the store, the clerk was like, what are you guys doing? And my brother's like, oh, can I get a shopping bag? And they just bought it and they're like, cool, yeah, yeah. And he puts all the shit in the shopping bag. And they didn't even bat an eye. It's so weird. They thought they were gonna get caught, the store clerk coming up to them. They thought they were like, oh shit.
Here we
But the
go.
clerk's like, can I help you? And he's like, can I get a shopping bag? And they just gave him a shopping bag. And then he walked out the store with the like stolen goods.
Wow.
It's like, what? Yeah, so everything was like right and then crazy at the same time because the store clerk, they got away with it because they could have been stopped there and they said, empty your pockets. Like, and the cops could have been called me like, where's your parents? And they would have had to hold them there until the cops came. So that was like, even thinking about that, like that didn't even run through my head. I don't even know if it ran through their head, like that people call the cops when people still, you might get held there and like whatever, because whatever, like we just didn't have the knowledge of like the outside world. I think like, no, they did a lot more because before our dad like went crazy or like my brother, before my stepmom met my dad, the brother and my other brother, they kind of went through preschool and whatever, like when they were 4 or 5, they kind of had the normal, their family knew them, obviously, you know, a slight schooling, I guess they went to like preschool for like a very short period before like my dad. So I think they knew somewhat, but it was still very much, not as much as a 12-year-old, because I think they were like 12 maybe at the time, 13 or something.
Did you hear about that family? I think there were 9 kids, maybe 13 kids. I can't remember, but the oldest, well, not the oldest, one of the girls escaped. She was on the news. You saw that, right? And
Like, I
she
was
didn't
like,
even know what the sidewalk was.
yeah, I was
They were
like,
like,
I feel you. I was like, holy fuck. I was like, that's crazy. Cause I was like thinking of like ours, and I was like, me and my sister, I think she called me, like we were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I was like, watch that.
911 emergency, what are you reporting?
Um, so,
This is 911, do you have an emergency?
I just went away from home because I live in a family of 15, okay? Can you hear me? And we have abusing parents. Did you hear that?
Okay, how did they abuse you?
Okay. They hit us, they throw us across, they like throw us across the room. They pull our hair, they yank out our hair. I have my 2 little sisters right now are chained up.
Okay, how old are you?
I'm 17.
What's your name?
Golden Turpin.
A second dispatcher picks up.
Hello?
Oh yes, I'm still here.
I was actually on the road because I didn't even know about the sidewalk. You're supposed to be on the sidewalk, but I never been out there.
What's your address?
Okay, you gotta give me a minute. It's gonna take a while. I've never been out. I don't go out much, so I don't know anything about the streets or anything.
Does anybody at the house take any kind of medication?
Oh, I don't know what medication is.
Yeah, and you could tell the way, like even, yeah, it was crazy because the way she freaking the way she was able to do that was through a YouTube comment on a Justin Bieber fucking music video that she would go on YouTube, and
Yeah,
someone
she was like, oh my God, there's a life where people are nice to you. Like there's what? Like she literally didn't even know there were like nice adults on earth or
Yeah.
happy children,
yeah,
much less know what the fuck the sidewalk is called. She
Mhm.
didn't know her address. She was 17 years. Oh, okay, I'm repeating it all.
didn't even know what
If you
address
people
meant.
didn't see this, oh, I'm gonna put a link in the show notes because this is some of the craziest shit I ever heard in my life.
Yeah, she didn't know what an address is. Like the cop was asking her questions, and she's just like, I was just like, I feel you. I was like, yeah, you know, like I said, when you're born in a box, like how would you know? Like, how would you know all these things?
Did
Like,
you hear what happened to them after?
oh no, I haven't.
They ended up in foster families and it wasn't good.
Yeah,
That
you know,
mom, her, they ended up
my
getting abused again. How?
dad would use against us, like to keep. That was one of his little tricks. He said, you know, you guys can be taken away. You know, if it wasn't for him, and if anything ever happens, like basically, I think he was warning, like if people call the cops or you alert anyone, you're gonna get put in foster care, and you're all gonna be split up, and like bad things are gonna happen to you.
And
Like,
that was probably true.
I mean, it was, yeah, but he would remind us that all the time. He's like, you guys are never gonna see each other again. If anything, you know, you're gonna get put in foster home. And like, yeah, I mean that.
It's
Yeah,
also reminding me, it's interesting that you live near Waco now because you're also reminding me of the Branch Davidians and just their whole little
fresh. What is it, David?
crash.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad wished he was that. He couldn't even get the cult right. No, my dad would have loved to have been a David Koresh. He was, because my dad, like later on, he would get in other called the Young Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
They were the guys he would try to I guess do his teachings to, and like some of them were there for a while, and then one kid would like, these kids were like 19, 20, these young, he's called them the Young Brothers, and he, you know, try to get them to sort of join or like, you know, be a part of his whatever. And I remember them just showing up and
So
having
you had the one fake uncle that was like a devotee of your dad, and then these people that you're talking about right now,
Yeah.
were they coming to the property?
Yeah, they would be in, we would go to our rooms because when company was over, we had to stay in our room. And they would come over, he would have meetings like whatever, it used to be like 5 p.m. or something. There would be 5 of them, 6 of them
Every
sometimes.
day?
Not every day. It
Okay,
would be like once or twice a week.
okay.
He would hiccup. He would bring them over. They would have, because we weren't allowed, I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about because we had to like weren't allowed to be seen. So he would bring them over, have his meetings with them. I just know he called them the Young Brothers, and he would try to, I guess, get more and more and get them to get more young guys so
Mhm.
he can train them for whatever I don't know, but
Was he trying to
that was-
radicalize them?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Because the whole thing with him, like you said, breaking the bubble because of 9/11, I mean, that they only do that under very extreme circumstances because they know they know that the chances that it's gonna end everything are so freaking high, and they would only do that for extreme greed. Because usually it's like that, or what else did I read? Or they decide I'm gonna get caught and I have to kill myself and everyone else too. It's either extreme greed or we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
And I just want to know what the fuck what this meant to him. What happened? Was it one of the fucking people in the plane that he was sad about, or someone in
I was like,
America,
years
right?
later, I was like connected, like I was like, wait, he doesn't have a brother. Because I read the book, The Lumen Towers, which is Lawrence Wright, good book. It's about the Twin Towers and Osama bin Laden. And I
Okay.
found out, like when I read that book, The Lumen Tower, Lawrence Wright, whoever wants to read it, they had a Netflix series called I forgot, it was a Netflix or Hulu series, but the book was going over Osama bin Laden's history and from when he was 9 and read Horses to his Caterpillar, the construction. In that book, I didn't know the Al-Qaeda was called the what is it? The Brotherhood. It was called the Muslim Brotherhood. So they would refer to themselves as the Brotherhood. And so they were brothers. And then I'm like, oh, is that a brother? You know, because it wasn't his related brother, because my dad doesn't have a brother. And so I thought it was one of his, like, I don't know, maybe that's, but my dad was not that great to orchestrate that close to something
Right.
that big.
It makes me wonder if he felt like he was going to be the beneficiary of something, like that something was going to change.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Because otherwise he wouldn't come
Okay.
crawling out of his hole to
Yep.
expose himself.
I think he might, oh, that makes sense, because he might have thought there was going to be a revolution in a way. Because imagine what people were going through. It was just like, this is it. I think he thought this is it. Like, this is the moment that they're talking about. Like, I think let's get ready, and I need to figure out, is this the moment? That makes sense. Oh my God, I never thought of that. To be like, I need to get the word from whoever's, because there's a lot of cells in New York. Remember the Muslim Brotherhood? There are a lot of Al-Qaeda cells in New York.
I think they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Like, yeah, I knew New York was like a big hub. Florida was too, I think, maybe. But that makes sense for him to be like, is it happening? Basically, is this the event? Huh. That is crazy. Because I know he wouldn't have anything to do with the actual.
It can't be, oh, my friend, I'm so sad. I need to find out if my friend,
Yeah,
that's
my
not your dad.
Yeah, I like, my dad didn't have capacity to like, and I had to like recently figure this out. Like, my dad had no capacity to like love. And like, that's just not in his psyche. So why would he be crying over a brother like that's a friend? Like, why is he emotional about, like, I don't. But yeah, that makes sense.
Inquiring minds want to know.
He would have been like, this is it, let's go. Like, because yeah, because either there was always the I guess sword over our neck, in the literal sense that he would do the other end of like killing everyone, or the other, you know. And you know, he's threatened that like multiple times, like
That was
throughout.
going to be my next question. Was that something that he used? Because
Yeah, I remember, it's not funny, but I mean, I'm laughing out of just pure, like, sometimes I have to laugh, but it's crazy. And I think back, I was 6. I remember it was at nighttime. It was like 8 o'clock. The lights were on, and my stepmom and my dad were like at it. Like, it was like loud. And then I know he had 2 guns in the house. One was a BB gun, one was a regular gun. And he also had 2 swords. They hung up in his room. They would be on the wall. And he was arguing with my stepmom. I don't know what it was. And he just told us all to like line up. I'm going to chop your heads off, like with the sword in his hand. My stepmom, like, she's like fighting with the sword, like she cuts her hand. And I think that same night, because he had the gun, and I think he had the gun, and I know he shot the floor. I remember there was a bullet hole in the floor. And then I think he decided like, oh, I'm just going to chop their heads off or some shit like that. But they were like going at it. And I remember like, you know, he said line up. So I guess we have to line up. Like, that's what he's like. We never like in our life would disobey like an order from our father. So like, I remember just being like, I didn't conceptualize what chopping your head off meant, but I knew like decapitation, like that didn't fully go through my head, but I had the horrible gut feeling like that it was bad. Like, it's like, I don't want like my head to be cut off, and just being like the not even, I don't even know, butterflies is not even the right word. It's like your stomach's gonna come out of your mouth basically. And I just remember that feeling. I remember my stepmom like holding the sword and ended up cutting her hand. And then some reason, like, whatever happened, he like calmed down. But he did that like once or twice. and I think like some other times, but that was the one I remember like the most, like was like, cause I believed him, I suppose, like,
Yeah.
or like, oh, we're gonna get our heads chopped off. I was like, I guess, that's what's gonna happen. But
Good God.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
terrifying.
And I know he would say sometimes too, that was like literally physically he had the sword in hand, but other times he would be like, he would threaten that he can like end us, you know? And I guess that's why he had the gun. He could have just like shot us in the head like while we slept at night, one of these whatever nights he chose. But he
Was-
wouldn't have that power, I guess, so he couldn't. Like if you
Yeah.
get rid of you don't have a cult. Like if you get rid of your children that you're raising, as your small little. So, and I think it's, yeah, because he, at the same time, that's fucked up. Like, because I don't want to excuse him being serious, but it's like he was also like maybe he full of shit. Like, what is it like? I don't want to say a pussy, but what's the more formal way to say he was?
Well, it's true. A lot of times, yeah, a lot of times that is the case. I met a woman. My mom lives up north, and we were up there at a lake with our dog, and this other woman was there with her dog, and we got to talking, and it turned out she worked on death row at San Quentin, which is, I don't know what they house there now, but it used to be like a supermax security with a lot of serial killers and stuff. And she knows what I do. And we're talking about my interest in psychology and all of that. And she's like, the one common thread with the most disgusting serial killers, the ones that are she's like, they're such fucking pussies. They're
Yeah.
scared of their own shadow.
Yeah. And they don't want to die themselves, even though they threaten to be like, I'm gonna kill myself. And they're so, yeah, because they always, instead of just fucking killing themselves too, they kill everyone. It's just like, you fucking pussy. Like,
Yeah, that's why they have to control everything, because they're afraid people are going to find out, or that they're not going to be able to get the things, because they know they can't get them on merit.
yeah. Like my dad would change like the two-face, like around people and us. Like he just switch, like act like he was like this person he was not. And like, that's why we couldn't talk to people too, because if we said something that was not out of line, like was out of line with what he's been telling people, it's like, oh, the jig is up. Like, what are they talking about? You told us this. So
You went to school starting at what age when you were living with your?
officially like public school, not like
Yep.
Sylvan, those programs. I was 12 going on 13. 'Cause it
Okay,
was
so
summer of 2005.
you did junior high and high school, and then you went into college. So when you went to college, were you ready by then?
Not really. Like I wasn't ready in like certain like, so I was in 7th grade and like that public school was kind of lenient, and they, because I was on high honors too. Like I was an honor student. For me, like I don't
See,
know.
look at it, like you didn't even learn to read at the normal time. And you're in school for 10 seconds, and you're like, now I'm an honor student, and I taught everything myself. Go on.
I was well, because I'm thinking back and I'm like, maybe public school is just like full of shit, and like, because I'm like, maybe it wasn't that. I don't know. I was like, I think I was able to learn faster, and like a lot of the kids, like I wanted to learn too.
You
That was,
wanted it.
I fucking wanted it, and I think that's what made everything. Like I fucking stayed in summer school on purpose, and everyone thought I was like, what the fuck? They were like, why are you in summer school? I was like, oh, because I wanted to be in summer school. But these were for kids that needed to catch up, like homework, whatever, past their grade. And I decided to like in 8th grade, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna voluntarily go. Yeah, I love knowing things. I love knowing how things work. That helped a lot. Like, because the kids around me, like, I was just like, you fucking, like, I just get so angry because they wouldn't do their homework. They would complain. And I'm just like, fuck, like, I didn't get to go to fucking kindergarten 1st through like 6th grade. I don't have the structure and the blocks that you guys, I'm working on a foundation that's fucking shaky. That I don't have like the vowels and the fucking subject verbs. Like, none of that shit like applies to me. And I'm like just working what I got. So I'd just be like, these fuckers. And I'm like, maybe it's not that hard. Maybe public school is full of mostly shit. Like, and I was able to get by. Maybe the teachers were like, I don't know, they were a little, because I don't like, it's so hard to realize what I wasn't paying attention to how people saw me, like adults. And I don't know if they were like more lenient than they should have been, or I don't.
I'm gonna
maybe.
go with no. I'm gonna give you all credit for your honors.
Because I remember writing a story about our dad, because we had to write in English. Was it ninth grade I was in? And I wrote the story of being like, I think a moment that changed, or were you like, you were the most fearful. And I wrote the story about thinking I was going to die. And my dad threatening to chop our heads off. And I wrote that matter of factly, not any type of, but I'm thinking back, a teacher reading that and then being like,
So, and then this one day, my dad just did this. It was just like a regular Tuesday, right?
yeah, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't even conceptualize how they reflected on that in regards to like me just lollygawking, and I would see them like, yeah, it's probably they probably just like, holy fuck, what the fuck.
Yeah. So,
So
well, with college, did you go away to college or were you still,
I went upstate. I was still in New York, the state, but I went upstate New York.
do you like lived with other, do you live in a dorm or off
Yeah.
campus or, oh, in a dorm? Oh, how fun. That
Yeah,
must have
that's
been.
why I went, because there was when we the college, whatever, when you're like 11th grade, 12th grade, you start preparing. There's the SUNYs and CUNYs, whatever the city schools. And yeah, and I was just like, I don't want to be in this, like I want to be in a dorm, like the college experience, like I want that. So I was like, let me go like out of state or whatever, a dorm. So that was, yeah, I finished high school, high honors or honors. My aunt was getting on my case. That's the thing, like my sister, she started off bad, like she didn't get honors, she was bad with her grades. And the thing is, I started out with fucking honors, so I had to like keep that standard throughout my
Right.
whole like, high school career. Because when I got like I was like high honors, and then I stopped being on high honors, and my aunt's like, "What the fuck is going on?" Basically, why you're not in a high honors? And I'm like, I'm like, I don't know. Like I know it. I was fucking around more.
Yeah.
You know, my peers, I got more acclimated with kids and like my friends get distracted. But college, I thought I was okay, but like I had so I got a scholarship, and with this scholarship, the higher educational HEOP, usually kids that don't like have money, or it's a program to like whatever help people who don't have the means to get into a college, like, you know, it's 60 grand a year. I mean, yeah, in order to get the scholarship, you have to go through the 5-week summer program. And what they do is to get you like basically ready. So the summer program is to like show you what college classes are. So you take a few college classes. So right out the gate of graduating, I was shipped to upstate and I had to go to college basically. There was no summer for me. And I remember, oh my God, I think I realized how stupid I was, or not was, but I felt, yeah, I felt real like, fuck, this is way different than high school. This is a level like I was not prepared for. I was miserable that summer because one, they crammed, it was not like the college, like they were telling us like this is not the experience, because the summer program was,
Oh, yeah.
it was 7
Condensed.
p.m. to 7 p.m. But in regular, like when I took regular class, when I actually went to college, it was 1 class a day, maybe 2. And the rest of your day was like whatever. But this was like packed. So it was not only packed stressful like that, it was like college course level, and the fucking writing. Oh my, holy fuck. Yeah, that was like horrible.
Did
Like
you get help?
I did, but oh, fuck, it was just such a like turmoil. Like there was help there, but like I was so depressed about it that I wasn't able to like let it absorb, and like just frustrated with like how I felt difficult it was to complete the English class, because we read what was it, Heart of Darkness was the book. I didn't really read a very thick book like that, and we had to write an essay. And even in high school, like we were writing essays that were like, whatever, they were like softballs, I think. But to write an essay in college on a book like Heart of Darkness about the Congo, you know, was you had to read the whole book for one. So that was a long, like whatever. And I did terrible. Like I felt like beginning, it was just super stressful. And that was like another like moment of like a wall that I felt I was hidden. And like I was like so depressed. Like I didn't realize how depressed I was. But that made me so depressed that summer. I guess I'll share this because like I don't know, when people try to harm themselves, I don't think I was really trying to end my life, but I remember being miserable. And I remember, and on top of that, it was like I had TMJ, so my jaw was hurting.
Oh.
And I like had like the ibuprofens, like those they give you the prescribed ones when you go to like get your teeth, whatever. So yeah, I just like took a lot of those and just was like, whatever, I'm gonna just take all these ibuprofens and see what happens. Nothing happened. I just like woke up with a major headache. But like I took a handful and I was like, I don't know. I was just like, I don't fucking care. But that's how bad it got. Like, and I was just like, not a good time. Not a good
Yeah.
time.
How'd
And
you get past it?
I think when regular school started, it passed. And like I think what happened is too, these things I didn't realize they come in waves. You
Mm.
get really depressed and then it goes away. And then I was able to like now, like it happens not really often at all, like, but I could be feeling okay and like there'll be a wave that I call them. And I'm like, oh yeah, it'll pass. I'm just like, oh, I just have to wait till the fucking wave passes and I'll be back to normal.
Yeah.
But that's something I think people don't realize. It's not a one be all. It's like they just get less frequent. Whatever turmoil that you get through, like those things come back for some reason. I had, starting regular college courses help because it wasn't as stressful, and then meeting friends, and then weed, which also got in the way of like me learning because I would choose smoke weed with my friends and not be depressed, then try to write a paper that I felt very strongly negative towards. And that almost got me like, like at a certain point, the professor was just like, what the fuck? Because like, he's like, how is this even allowed? Like, oh my God, yeah, I felt so like, at that point, I was like, I don't even care anymore because I didn't study. I took a test. It was shit. Like and he like contacted my guidance counselor and it was like, this is unacceptable. Why is she getting help? You know, how, like, like, it was basically, I wrote like oh my God, it was just horrible. Like, and I was like, smoking weed, but I didn't tell him that. But I got a D and an F. And like, yeah, I was very much close to fail in a class that would like, I guess, get me kicked out, but I just had to like skate by with a fine arts degree and just, but it was like, I was just having like, I don't know, it's just like the weed was like a way to not be miserable because I was like, well, I don't want to be miserable. I want to at least hang with friends. And I knew when I was hanging with my friends, we would smoke weed. And that was better than me beating myself over the head because it's this essay that I have to now face again, that I'm a horrible writer and therefore I'm like stupid. So
Right.
that's the moments that I had. I'm like, I'm stupid. I have friends who were like got an A on their essay, and like teachers were like, and I just saw that, like, just like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and if you think you're stupid, I mean, stupid can't really be fixed. So then you lose a lot of hope. It's like, well, I guess I'm dumb and I'm always going to be dumb. So then why does it matter? Who gives a shit? I can see
exactly.
that.
Yeah. And I just knew, I'm like, this, I'd rather have some type of peace and happiness than not. And that's what I chose. I chose weed and my friends. And I knew
Well,
that.
when I was first got out of high school and went to college, I chose Molly and my friends, and it wasn't Molly back then. Back then, it was straight up ecstasy. It was different. I don't know what the fuck they put in the drugs now, but they were way better in the 90s when I was doing them, and I did that. I raved.
Yeah, they
I
were.
raved instead of getting my college degree.
Yeah.
So at least you finished. I was
know.
very dedicated.
Oh my God. Surprisingly, I'm just like, I was just so, I'm like, the one thing that kept me like to finish too was like, that kept me going was like the chore thing with my aunt. And I knew like, if I have to take a summer off, like I was like, I just need to like, I don't want any type of delay with getting this over with. Like to finish college was like, kids took a sabbatical, they took a year off or they went whatever. And I was like, nope, nope, nope.
You're so smart.
I have to just get through this. Like whatever it is, I'm like, just get through it. I don't want any more delays. I just was thinking, just finish it. Just like, just finish it, finish it, finish it, and it's gonna be done. Like 4 years is gonna be done. Eventually, like they'll be over with. And yeah, I was like,
Kids, if you're listening, listen to Elci, not me, because I was in school off and on for 30 years.
oh wow.
And I only have the 1 degree.
Oof.
I mean, I have a lifetime of experience and I've taken a billion classes and I know a lot of shit, but the world isn't going to give me any validation for any of it because I didn't do it the way you're supposed to. I have a question about like your dating life and your attachment style, because I don't know if any of your stepmothers were affectionate when you were growing up or older siblings, and I don't know what your
Yeah.
connection was like with your dad.
I never saw my dad as a father, like in the sense like he was always an authoritative figure. There was no like closeness. Like it's just the way the dynamic, the like on his part only, the being fearful of him and knowing that you're gonna get punished, that was kind of the dynamic. And it's just like when he was not around, there was like a relief of like, oh, so like that being is just like didn't want him to be around. And there was we didn't call him father or like dad. It was Baba, which at the time I didn't know. It's just a Muslim way of saying father. Or Arabic, I forget, whatever it is, but Baba is the same as father in a different culture. So being that we called him Baba, like instead of like I knew about like dad and father, but so that psychologically, like also I know like did something like where she's like, oh, he's not a dad and he's not a father. Like it felt weird to even use those words to even describe him for a while. Like, but I like now I do because that's but Baba was what we called him. And then the fact that he like we got in trouble, like he's a Punisher, like the Punisher. So like I guess that's why it's a fine line when you punish your kids, like causing pain, like feeling pain, like getting whooped, whatever, from your parents. Yeah, there was like a resentment. It's fear and resentment in a way because you're being hit and like you're physically in pain, like those things, like whatever. But he never like showed emotions, and we didn't show emotions towards him. Only like he would do things, manipulative things. Like I remember one time I was like old enough or small enough for like to be held, like maybe 4-year-old, and my dad's like, he asked, did I love him? And at the time, like I don't know what love is, like, but I'm like in my mind I was like no, but I knew that he wanted to hear yes, or in my head I was like, oh, you have to say yeah. And so I was like, yeah, but just even him saying that like felt weird. Like, do you love me? Because he used to do that emotional blackmail, like when I think he knew what the dynamic of the house and we were afraid of him. And then he'd just be like, blame our stepmoms. But he would ask every once in a while, like, or he would just be like, you guys don't love me. You don't love me, So, or when he asked me that, like, do you guys love me? Like, or, he asked me, like, I just remember him holding me and I'm like feeling weird that he would ask me, did I love him? I'm like, no, I know I didn't. Like, I didn't even know what it meant, but I know whatever that was, it was not there. But I said, yeah, because I'm like, pretty sure that's something was telling me that's what he wants to hear. It's like, yeah. And he's just like, no, you don't. Like, I think he was just like, no, really, do you? No, you don't.
When you were 4?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I know, like, come on, man. I know, because I remember I was young because he was holding me like on his side. And I just remember feeling like,
Do you know about the attachment styles? Like if
Oh.
you're an anxious avoidant, there's
Oh, I'm attached as fuck. Like my relationship, my first boyfriend was in high school. I was 16.
Mhm.
But that was, I don't know, it's strange because after that, like I never dated anyone again. I just didn't want to go through any of the emotional stuff of dating because we had the breakup and then we broke up and then he was like very sad that I felt very sad that he was sad that because he felt like, I don't know, he wanted to be with me and he was just like sad about us breaking up and I was like, I don't like you any, like there was just no, whatever was there was gone and I was like, I
Right.
tried to we tried to go back out for like a whole week and I was just like, ugh, like I can't do this, I can't pretend. So
Yeah,
we broke
Nick. It's too
finally and
late.
then he was distraught. I was like, fuck, I feel bad but I can't pretend. And then after that I never dated. I was never in a relationship.
To this day?
Yeah, that was my one and only boyfriend. Yeah. I've
Really?
had hookups. Yeah, I mean, I've had hookups. And I had one who was kind of a situationship, but we weren't. But that was maybe the second closest to like maybe a relationship, but that was all wonky as fuck too, so I don't count it. But other than that, I just, yeah, I was like, I didn't like want a relationship at all. Like I just chose like didn't feel like I
What
needed
about
to.
now?
It's different. Like over the course of like me moving to Texas, I've been like contemplating like I don't know, because even moving to Texas was something like I knew I had to change. Like, and I've been taking the time to really dig in my core and not sleep around, not hook up. Like, Bumble and Tinder was kind of like the gate of being like, oh man, because yeah, I went through that phase of being a savage and ghosting guys, meeting guys on Bumble and Tinder and then ghosting them. And then, well into, I guess, 28, 9, I kind of was like, all right. And then now even more, 32, I've just been thinking like, so, what I always said I never wanted kids. I always said I never wanted to get married. I wasn't sure how I would actually even be in a relationship with a guy and be like, oh, you're supposed to like live together. And I'm like, no, we're supposed to have our own apartments and we just sleep over as much as you want, but like we're still gonna have separate houses. So that's what's my ideal, like over the course of like until now, like yeah, it's changing.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I'm like trying to figure it out and just going with the flow of like
I'm honestly not as shocked as you might think because I was single for so long, like a freak. I'm like, how is it like, am I an alien from outer space? I don't understand what's going on. So I mean, it's not that strange to me that you haven't had that many relationships because I didn't have that many either before I met my husband.
And I just, when people start to like me, when a guy starts to like me, I get so like, I get annoyed. And then it's like, I get allergic to them. And I'm like, it just something happens where when they really start to like me and I just have to like exit out. I have to go like MIA because I'm like, no, this is not
Makes you
what we
uncomfortable.
agreed to.
There's a
Yeah.
book called Attachment. It's very short. but you might be interested in it. I am also, I don't know if you're an anxious avoidant. It sounds like you're just an avoidant, but I don't know. And obviously I'm not going to like say what your attachment style is, but I'm an anxious avoidant, which is like, I really, really want somebody, but then like when they like me back, I'm like, that's enough.
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
That's plenty and too much. Thank you.
I know, I feel bad. So like, cause I'm thinking back on like, when I like my first relationship and I called my ex a leech. And I remember he took that to heart.
Oh,
Like, oh shit. Yeah, I think about that sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, I was so because
Right.
we both I didn't know how to handle my emotions. He had problems with his mom, like he was living with his aunt. His mom was like, she was she was an addict and wasn't in his life for a while. And so we were both like probably just our mental state was like not a good combo. And I just didn't know how to handle other people's emotions. So I came off like, I guess one guy told me like a cold-hearted bitch. And I was just like, I was like,
okay. Well,
I mean,
that's a little
I was
extreme.
like, I get it. And I was like, oh, I didn't even read it was a long text message. And I remember reading that part and I was like, I'm gonna go back to sleep. I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
And I'll
gonna-
pass on reading the rest of this. I don't need
Yeah,
that.
I deleted
Right.
it. I get it. And I mean, I fucking understand. Like, I'm not gonna give them shit and be like, they're just fucking assholes. No, yeah. I mean, like, I'm like thinking back on my mental state. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then I have two other questions. Okay, so you get released from this bubble life and you're out in the world and music and pop stars and stuff. Like they're shaking their ass, they're half naked, they're singing these lyrics, like all the like I mean, I had a gradual buildup because I was born in the 70s. I had a buildup to Madonna, you know? But you just busted on the scene and Britney was out there being a teenager. So what was that like? I'm just very curious.
Oh, so
It's like you got off a spaceship from another planet.
yeah. So what was it? There was some type of knowing of the boy band stuff, but not like because my older sister, like I said, my older siblings, they would like sneak around and listen to the radio. So I would whatever they did, like, and my older sister, she would turn on the radio, and that's one of the things my older brother and her would fight over is like who got the radio and the
Mhm.
time we would get it. And she would turn on the music, and the Backstreet Boys back then were like pretty popular, Britney Spears. So I was able to get some of that stuff, and I would just look up to her and be like, yeah, like she was into the Backstreet Boys, like I was into it, and oh man, I was obsessed, like yeah, because I remember TRL, and then when we got to our regular normal house, we sneaked to there was cable. We would watch TRL and the Backstreet Boys would show up and we would actually see them like video because I just always heard them,
Yeah.
get to watch their videos. Yeah, like the funny story is during that morning when our dad was freaking out, we were like, all right, he's distracted. This is our time to like, be free and like run around and do whatever. So we knew TRL was like on in the morning. We get the phone, we call TRL. And they were like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? We're being under attack. And we are just like, we want to request a song. Like, I remember all the siblings telling me that, and they like were like freaking out at them. Like, are you like mad? Like, don't you fucking know? Because TRL is in New York, it's Manhattan. And they're like, don't you know we're being attacked? Like, the world is like ending basically. And we're just like,
You're like, we're from the backwoods and we just saw daylight for the first time. I don't know what you're talking about. Do we like to hear Backstreet Boys?
oh my God.
What a
was
trip.
Yeah, that was, oh my God. Yeah, like that was, thinking back on that, that's fucking hilarious. Because we didn't fucking care. Like, we didn't know about the Twin Towers. Like, why would we know? Like, why would we care about like what's happening in New York? Like,
You don't even know about government. Like,
yeah. I just
you
knew
know
my
about
dad.
the structure of society or like, did you even know what an Asian person was? Had you ever seen like,
Oh, actually, yeah, because my dad was heavily into Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. Like, no, not
okay.
Bruce Lee and Jet Li. the only TV we were allowed to watch was like stuff like martial arts or like anything like that. So he kind of respected like martial arts a lot, and he respected like I guess Asian culture, like kung fu and all that stuff, whatever. So we would watch a lot of Jet Li and Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was like one of his favorite, um, whatever.
Yeah.
He praised Bruce Lee, pretended like he was him, I would say sometimes. Uh, but yeah, so Asian, like, yeah.
I really have a feel. I mean, that really helps round out a good picture of your dad. That is so I can see that. Like, okay. And then the last thing that I'm going to bother you with is, so what are your thoughts on religion?
Yeah. I remember, my being Muslim growing up, I didn't like it. And anything my dad, like the prayers in the morning, did not stick because I was young and I just thought I'd rather sleep. So that's how it didn't like stick. And then when I went to my grandma's, she was Presbyterian. I went to church with her. That was boring. The only time that I thought it was fun was when they were singing, because the only thing to do with sing was like the only entertainment. They picked up the book and I'm like, finally, we're not just sitting here like
Mhm.
listen to a guy fucking talk. And we would sing. And then the other times, Saturday school, we would go to our church would take us on trips and stuff. So that was fun. So I didn't really think much about religion. And then high school, like whatever, getting in middle school in New York, I think I was turned to atheism. So I considered myself an atheist for a while. And I think now, given the environment that we're living in and society's upside downness, especially with women and the whole our bodies, anybody could be us now, but that shit is like, that kind of makes me like, it's been like, oh wow, we're turning in a direction that I guess I know. I'm like, now I get it. I get it. I
Aren't
get
we
it really.
all having that experience
I'm like, I guess I get it.
simultaneously? Like, now I get why we have the guardrails for morals. I personally don't need them,
Yeah, I don't.
but apparently we need them.
Yeah, as a whole.
And we all need to agree with it.
Yeah, and we can't have nice things like atheism, which I don't think is nice. But that was another brainwashing thing. I think atheism was a way to go. It's just another liberal like thing I got rid of. Like my politics has changed dramatically too, but
Same.
but religion to me now, like I wish I spoke with someone. I was jogging, and this lady and I spoke, and I told her, I was like, it's not that I don't want to not have faith. I just don't, I can't lie to myself. I don't know what it is. I don't speak to God. The only time I actually spoke to God was like to like not get an ass whooping, because I was just like, please, I don't want to get in trouble tonight. Let's not get an ass whooping. And it actually worked. We didn't get an ass whooping that night. So maybe there was a God.
I was going to say, and then you got an ass whooping.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. Okay, good.
I was like, fuck yeah. And that was good. But I didn't never necessarily like seriously like thought I wish, like I always wish, because I'm like, I see people and I'm like, all those times where I had all those, when I was so down and depressed, like I wish I had the shoulder of faith or something, or belief in God that would have helped. I got through it, but I'm thinking like that would have fucking helped. That's like, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to lie to myself. And she told me, she's like, well, you just have to just maybe say out loud that, she was like, hello, God, you know me, but I don't know you. And I was like, maybe. I haven't tried it, but I don't know. But I thought that was very interesting to be like, you're right. I mean, in a sense, like she's saying whatever entity knows me, even though I don't know it. And I'm kind of on that, like, I think I respect it a lot more than I ever did. And I think they're we need it more than ever. Like we can't have nice things. I'm sorry. It's like we got to go back to being,
Yeah.
it's like we hate to see the pendulum swing back that far, but but the way it's swinging this far is like, what? Wow.
It's too much.
Yeah.
I'm exactly right there. I have a little bit of a different, because I can't do a blind faith. I have to have something tangible. I've always been that way. I'll tell you, I think my audience has heard this probably before more than once, but so when I was little, my atheist parents sent me to a Christian preschool. And that's where I went. And when I was 4, I think that's when I started. So it was pretty early on, 4 or 5. We would do like it was like a little fold out thing with like little Bible stories and lessons or whatever, and then like things to color, and for little kids. But one day they said, okay, tomorrow we're going to ask Jesus into our hearts. So that's what's going to happen tomorrow. So go home and make sure it's okay with your parent, because they knew that not all the kids there were Christian, even though it was a Christian preschool. And we didn't go to the church. And I think a lot of the students didn't. So I went home and I asked my mom. My parents were already divorced. And I was like, hey, Mom, this is what we're doing tomorrow. And is it okay? And what does it mean? And she said, well, I don't believe in God. And I'm like, well, why not? And she's like, well, because I haven't seen any proof or heard anything. And I don't know, that's just where I'm at. She's like, but if you want to, that's totally up to you. Like, you're going to just have to decide. I'm 4 or 5. And so being a smart little genius, I was like, well, it's not going to hurt anything for me to ask him in there. Now, is it? Whether he's real or not. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I've been a just in case Christian since I was 4 years old. And I think that was a smart move.
Like that, just in case.
Yes. So I have 2 families, one West Coast, one from the South, one atheist, drug abusing, dysfunctional divorcees, no dads, blah, and then the other side is very Christian, tight family, lots of kids, holidays together, wholesome. So I see one lifestyle and another, and I know which one I would choose if I were to choose one. And it's not the dysfunctional one where nobody talks to each other and everyone's got a drug problem. It's not that one.
Yeah. Yep.
It's the wholesome one. I feel very grateful to have had both experiences. I'm very happy with who I am as a human being today, blah, 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 all of those things, but I can't unsee what I've seen. And then the other thing, I don't know if you would ever be interested in this. If you are, because I've always been like a seeker, probably ever since I was 4, like, what is it all about? Is God real? What, right? I did the ayahuasca, and I can't say that gave me like a solid answer, but it's given me some things to ponder and some things to hold on to that are just a little bit extra. So I don't know if that would ever be something you would be interested in, but it's
Yeah,
a thing. Now, a lot of people think it's a spiritual shortcut and it's not good and people shouldn't do it. There's so many different ways to think about these things. And I think it's really just to each their own. But that gave me something outside of myself that I actually experienced.
Yeah,
I don't know what.
I do, like, I want, but I'm also afraid. I'm scared of that door. I'm like, holy fuck, I'm scared. I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, whatever demons, I feel like they're gonna come through that door. And I'm like, maybe it won't be. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't have any of that, but I just felt very, I can tell you the one thing that was, there was a period of time in one of the sessions where I was like, I was feeling this feeling and having this understanding of an overwhelming sense of unconditional love. I could feel it, and it was so strong and tangible, not a high like drugs. Literally, my brain understood this as, oh my God, this is what unconditional love feels like. And it's here for me. This, whatever this is, it's here, and that's what it is. And then I realized, like, I don't think I've ever experienced that before. And
I know I haven't. Like, that's
right. And so then imagine having that feeling, but it's the universe holding you in that space.
Hmm.
That gives you something to be like, okay, well, maybe I am being looked at. I don't know. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but it's, it's just a thing, something. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you on all of that. Like I was raised with some knowledge and I've had my whole life, and then I see the world. And then I saw the opening number of the Olympics and I literally was like, oh, I'm Christian. I'm Christian now again, all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
yeah.
So now I'm a Christian.
And I think there's a bumper sticker I see every now and then, one of someone that lives in my town, and it's like, if God's not real, why are you trying so hard to like, make me not believe it? It's basically that if you're doing all this, if he's not real, like, why are you hollering? Like,
Yeah, just leave
like,
it.
mhm.
Yeah. Wow. Is there anything else you want to share?
Hmm. Yeah, because I'm usually like, I share when I'm asked the question. It's hard for me to like share like without.
I just don't know if there's anything that would pop in and like, wow, we really didn't cover that. Um,
I don't, yeah, because we talked a lot, so I feel like we covered everything, but it could have been just focus on one thing, and then yeah. But I think we got through. I
good.
think,
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that was really awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I just have a visual of the property. I can't get it out of my head. And then that brings like, I feel like I can feel the weather. Plus I'm just sitting here sweating. But I feel like this like deep South, hidden, religious.
With the fucking, we used to have berry bushes. I remember raspberries, and we used to pick them all the time. So it was very bushy, like with the raspberries and whatever the other ones are. Not raspberries, the
Boysenberries, blackberries.
blackberries, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how small that house is though, because I found the Google image of the address. It's totally demolished. There's only
I was
just
gonna say, is it still
no, yeah, it was a shack, like literally a shack. And it was a lot smaller than I remember as a child. But yeah, it was crazy. I was seeing above image of where the location was. It was interesting, like crazy. I was like, oh my God.
You did all that and look at you now. What do you do? What do you, I don't know if you want to say, because I'm
I
still
kind of
recording.
Well, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. So I do trade, and I'm a landlord technically. So like my aunt, when she passed, there was, property that I had to tend to that got passed down. So I just have tenants in there in New York still. And I mean, I'm just you basically trustee, and I just take care of that. And then I'm getting into trading, like day trading and stocks. So
Okay,
hopefully,
well, you're gonna have to pass down because I don't do shit and I'm 50 and I have no money for my future. So if you learn any tips,
yeah, I know.
pass on that knowledge.
I love like odd jobs, or like being, yeah, just waking up, flexibility, and like investment. I guess I'm heavily into like just investment and finding ways to become a better day trader, or, trading stocks, whatever I need to do later. Maybe it snowballs into like more real estate, you know?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. What a fascinating story. And you're so cool and lovely. And I loved talking to you and I loved hearing all about it.
Thank you. Well, thank you for listening, and everyone that will listen, I think, or hope. I don't know.
Yeah, they will. Thank you so much for, also just trusting me to, let you come here to tell your story. You don't owe that to me or anybody else. And I really appreciate it. My main thing with this, because, you talk about, I am very much into these ghouly things. I can't get enough of it. I don't know what it, like I said, when I'm done with you, I'm going to go right back into listening to something 20 times, crazier. And I don't know if my brain is just now needs that kind of stimulation, but my big thing, and I hope to be able to continue my education at some point, but now I'm in a shit ton of debt and still don't have money. So I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. But my biggest thing is prevention. I mean, yeah, these stories are great. It's fun. It's great. It's whatever. But like, we don't want people having these experiences in life. And if we don't talk about it and we don't learn about it, we don't know how to spot it. We don't know how to stop it. We don't know how to protect people from it. And then it continues. And then more people like your dad are born and released into the world. And, you know, that's the whole thing. I would like prevention someday. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head is. Like, it's like, how do we prevent the vicious cycle? And
because even someone like your dad, like you know, I don't know the extent of every behavior he's had in life, but at one point he was someone's child and he was a baby. And I don't even like to see that life get wasted. All of them bother me.
And
Every wasted life bothers me.
it is, and it's funny because like I talked to his ex-wife or his aunt, and he literally treated us like how he was treated. Like his mom had 9 kids or something, and he was the only one she like, you know, gave to his grandma, and then the grandpa was like not his real grandpa, and like would just be super like this shit that the way we lived. I'm like, oh wow, he did exact shit. I'm like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
You hear about the vicious cycle, but then I was like, oh wow, like I hear about this shit, but I'm like, yeah, that's exactly, yeah, he learned. Like you learn from whatever childhood you have. Like you said, he was a baby. He was a child, like all of us were.
But yeah, I will see you in the Twitterverse, and now I'll know who you are, and I love that even more. And I wish you lived closer, but if you come to LA, obviously, let me know. And if I go to Texas, I'll let you know for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard for me to come to LA just because it's LA.
It's not getting any nicer.
No,
It's shameful. I don't know what to do about that.
like Texas, I'm staying here. We just got another good thing about Texas is liberals don't like it. No, but during what is it called? The inspection that you get on your car every year. Texas will not have to do that 2025. They are getting rid of inspections.
Smog check. Nice.
Yeah, I was like, yes. And I just got my first car this year. Like moving here, I had to get a car. And my only inspection, like I'm gonna save the sticker.
Congratulations, by the way. Until next time, thank you. Bye.